Guys, it's Prison Mike here. I guess I should probably say now Prison Mini Mike. So, in honor of us coming down from 1082 to 1047 here and having this successful merger, but also finally getting all of our top people together from our top two alliances, getting everyone into the same group together and on the same page, we took a vote and changed our name now as well. So I think people just wanted to be able to say MOM as the abbreviation. So we're the Minions of Mayhem now. So people like the Minions, and that's what got voted on. I personally didn't have a strong preference, honestly. I just wanted it to be something ridiculous so that we didn't come across like Warrior, Slaughter, Assassins, or some other ridiculous names in a phone game. It just seems kind of silly to me to try to be intimidating like that. So I always thought it's more entertaining to do something goofy and silly like this, and especially when you beat up on people and then they have to see a bunch of weird minions and say that mom whooped their butt and stuff. It's much more entertaining. So anyways, we also just tried to get everybody really on the same page, bonding everybody together here now. So you can see everyone's kind of got some version of like the minions and stuff involved in their pictures and stuff, just to try to bond everybody together. It's good to kind of have your alliance hopefully come together, be on the same page, same team. Team building is good. It's going to be important for all these events and what I'm going to talk about today, which is these kill event things. So the last video, I went through all of the Void and Frenzy stuff since that's so prominent now, and hopefully gave tons of good information, but the videos are just getting really long. So I went into the kill event briefly, but didn't elaborate a lot on that and wanted to just designate a completely separate video to that with all the details that you guys can imagine, getting into the basic stuff first so that people are relatively new, they know what to do from the beginning, and then getting into some of the more advanced things and different tips and tricks and strategies and stuff like that to really be able to dominate as much as possible. Because I think it's pretty obvious, if you didn't know already, you think about this game, there's global conquest, there's polar wars, there's elite wars, there's the chaos land and iron blood battlefields, there's void, the strongest void, frenzy, commander kill events, there's duel of dominance, there's triangle wars, there's literally just everything in this game. I mean, I think even if you think about it right now, like literally we're finishing a polar wars season, we have iron blood going on literally right now, we're in a duel of dominance right now fight, we have global conquests, another prelim round that's starting here in like another day or two, and then we're going through these this head of state down here you can see as well, which is next week we will start up on the final third round again and be in our third event, which will be the Void event again. The first round was Void, and we were able to dominate pretty well. I have great footage for both the Void and the Frenzy events that I'm going to go over in this video and use that as hopefully a good teaching tool to elaborate on some of the different strategies, tips, and tricks and stuff that you can do. And so we dominated pretty soundly in the first round, and then had to do a very different strategy in the second round because of the differences in strength and everything, and we narrowly won that one. So in the first round, I think I ended up with second place in the kill event and second place overall. Simoon won. He did a great job. He deserved it. He, as always, super active and reinforcing in Void and then hitting people left and right, and he's super strong, so he did a great job and carried us to the victory in the first Void event, which was great. And I have a lot of really good footage we're going to go through from that too, which is pretty fun. And then the second round was a little bit different. We were up against a really strong opponent, and they had a couple of really strong players, so we had to switch our strategies. So it'll be really good to see the videos contrasting and comparing the different strategies that we had to implement. And that's really what all these events are. They're just different iterations of each other and different versions of one way of fighting with a little twist to them to try to keep people interested and to get people spending money, that type of thing. So I'm going to go through all the basic stuff, and you'll see a lot of it here, and how to just really dominate in kind of any scenario, and how to really be prepared to fight just about anybody and in any different type of situation, hopefully by the end of this. And I think, as I mentioned here, it looks like, yeah, so I think I took second in the overall event, but also in the kill event too. So yeah, our alliance took second, our nation won though, so yeah. Okay, and then I will say right now in season though, I think your boy's in first place overall. Right now, at least for the first couple rounds in head of state over everybody else. So hopefully that gives me a little bit of credit for, I must know to some extent what I'm doing here. If I can do that, I think this person's a C41, Simoon's a C40, 41. So I mean, all these people, just a lowly little guy down here hanging out with all these big fish, but I still must know a little bit of something, and hopefully I can impart that to you guys here in this video to help you guys be competitive as well through all these events and stuff. I think this can be a great video for you guys since kill events are so important, so pertinent. The first thing that I just wanted to briefly touch upon that I think is probably the most important, just fundamental concept to understand, and it's really simple when you think about it, but I think sometimes people just don't think about it, and that's the whole point of any of these kill events, any of these fights, is you need to score more points than your enemy. It's literally that simple. You need to kill more, assuming for simplicity's sake, you need to kill more of the same tier troops than your enemy does, right? So if you don't do that, you're losing. And so people oftentimes say like, well, I scored 30 million points, 40 million points, like I contributed a bunch, like what's the big deal and stuff. Well, if you gave up 100 mil points to score 40 mil, you really didn't help your nation, right? And the priority needs to be your alliance and your nation. You don't want people that are being selfish and prioritizing themselves in these events. That's not going to be a fun environment to play in. The goal is for everybody to work together and to hopefully find good targets so that you can kill more troops than you have die. And so there's this kill-death ratio thing that I always think about. It's not like an official metric or anything like that, but it's just a simple thing that I like to use to kind of get the point across that, like, you should always be killing more troops than you have dying, again, assuming they're the same tier troops, to make sure that you're doing a good job in these fights and that you're strong enough and or picking the right targets, right? So if you're hitting somebody in an event, you're killing a million troops, great, but did you lose 500k troops? In which case, great. Then you obviously helped your nation. Or did you lose 2 mil troops? In which case, you're a pretty significant liability for your nation. And that's not even taking into account things like the frenzy event, where there's actually basically a multiplier times 3 benefit or bonus if you're the attacker, or penalty if you're the defender in those events. So we'll go through all that stuff too. But that's the simplest concept, and it's really quite simple. It's just kill more troops than you lose, and you'll be fine. The one thing you can look at too is, I just like to look, so in your actual globe, like thinking about the kill rankings and stuff like that. So like, I think it's a good idea if you kind of compare, if you want to get a sense of how you're doing with this in broad sense. Obviously, the higher the number, the more positive, the better that like kill to death ratio would be. Because like if you think of 1, it means you kill 1 troop for every 1 that dies, right? So 2 would mean you kill 2 troops for every 1 troop that dies and stuff. So the higher the number that would be, the better. So you can kind of just go into your own globe and like look and see where your stats are at to compare to other people. I guess the one caveat with this, like this person, for instance, here, I have no idea who they are, but they don't actually compete in any events. They literally just kill T1 troops every day at farms to get this massive amount of kills, and every day they go up a couple million. The only time they don't increase their numbers is like the day after kill events, either frenzy or void events. So it's kind of like, I don't really understand the point of that, I guess, just to pad your stats maybe, but that's not like realistic. That you don't need to compare to those people because they're not actually competing or doing anything meaningful or useful to compare to. And so like that, unfortunately, that top person, you can't really use them as an example, and this third person was the same thing. I don't even think they're active anymore, to be honest. But I remember when we fought them a long time ago, there was like tons of I was pretty new to the game, there was like all this hate mail on their nation chat and stuff about this person because they were just bouncing around killing everyone's farms and taking their resources, not actually joining alliance or doing anything. And so they're kind of the same thing where they just killed a bunch of farms all the time. And now I don't even know if they're active. The number's been the same forever. So just something to be aware of. You don't want to compare yourself to people that aren't actually contributing. You want to compare yourself to the people who are hopefully like dominating in the nation and are an actual representation of what fighting is like. So like something like this, this person's an absolute beast. And so like they basically 535 million kills relative to less than 8 million losses. If you just divide those, it's basically like 68.3 or 4 or something like that, I think it was. So like 68-ish for their ratio of like kills to deaths. And like for me, I know, and I just checked this just to kind of get an idea of where I was at relative to other people. I think the 411 million, which was 9th, I think, in the globe right now, or somewhere around there, and then about 5.4 million losses. I think I was at like a 76, 77, something like that for the ratio. So I'm doing pretty well with that, and a lot of that's because it's a little skewed too, since I'm also helping to like purge the people in our nation who don't bubble appropriately and stuff. So I'm sure other people do that also, and I'll talk more about the whole purging thing later. But I just wanted to, again, start this video off with the importance of, I know it just sounds kind of boring like math, but you just have to understand the whole priority in this game, the whole way to do well, isn't just to kill whatever you can and take whatever losses come. That's not a good strategy, and that's not sustainable. You need to be picking good targets and doing strategies to get the most out of the troops that you have. And for me personally, this is a great video to talk about that because I love doing that. I love fighting people who are even stronger than me, and there are plenty of those. I like to have that challenge and try to win against people who are a lot tougher than I am, to just spend endless money, max everything, and then just hit everybody blindly and be able to kill everything doesn't really sound that fun to me. That would get old really fast. So I like the actual strategy side of this, and so I'm going to talk about a lot of that, and hopefully it'll be really beneficial for you guys to find ways to then implement these things and be successful. And like I said, I'm definitely not, I just went 38 C38 this last event, so I'm competing against people who are a lot stronger than me often, and I'm still able to find a way to, again, I'm in the head of state right now, #1, so I must be doing something right. And a lot of that I definitely owe to being in a really good alliance with really strong people who are also really helpful. So a lot of that does come into play, and you'll see building good relationships with your alliance and your alliance members working together is really one of the more enjoyable parts about this game for me, and hopefully it is for a lot of people. And so that's something that's really important to practice kill events together and build that rapport and everything with one another. I think that's a really good thing to do, and make sure that you're building that confidence and that reliability with each other, so that you can count on each other to be there to reinforce when you need them, or to do something when they say they're going to, and you'll see that come into play in some of our battles coming up here. So before I jump into the actual footage and see a bunch of the pretty epic fighting that we got into, so we got in some good scraps with people, some multiple million troops dead, not just wounded but dead in fights. It was pretty epic. So some fun videos. Just a couple things I want to tell you guys first. So just remember, before you start any of these events, and by these events I mean mainly the Void or Frenzy kill events particularly, you need to go in and load your Titan's vitality up here, so you can see this vitality. So you can load it up, right? You get 50 each. If you keep doing this to 400, so at 300, it goes up to, now this goal is 600. So you do another one and up to the 400 vitality, and then it goes up to 800, and then after that it's 1,000. I'm not going to load anymore right now, but just so you guys can see that. So you want to load that up because you're probably going to have anywhere from 10 to 30 vitality used per hit, depending on how the fight goes. Sometimes if they get smoked and the Titans get killed or wounded and stuff in the fights, you'll lose 30 vitality each versus just 10. And even if you hit a city that's empty, you'll lose 10 vitality, because that's just the way Camel does it. So that way you have to spend lots of gold to keep using your Titans in events. So you want to load this up in advance if you're planning on being very active and getting a fair amount of hits in, because it gets increasingly more expensive otherwise. And I never seem to have enough loaded on there because I'm always purging people and burning a bunch of my vitality before the event even starts, unfortunately. So just the way it is. I don't like to load it up every day though, because I'm also randomly hitting and purging people throughout the week when people are doing things. So yeah, anyways, important to load up your vitality is one of the main things in advance, like a day or two in advance. Get a bunch of this, so that way you're not spending 1,000 gold if you're going to be active and doing a lot of hits. You can do that for both of them. I'm not going to load it, but you can see. Okay, so other thing, just make sure before you start the event, or at least before you start actually fighting in the event, you want to make sure you're buffing up, right? So you're going to do things like your troop expansion. You want to use your 2 or 8 hours, whatever you need, and then your attack and your HP bonuses, right? So you want to load up on all these things, get yourself ready, make sure you're bubbled first too before the events start, or before your purge time, whatever that might be. And again, buffs up. And then decorations. So just think, if you want to, depending on how much you're going to compete in the event and all, you may want to add some of these different decorations if you have them available. Usually I'm using one of these two because these are the ones I typically have. So attack, defense, HP of Titans and Warplanes, or just overall attack here is the other option. This one doesn't give anything. I'm just ready for summer, so, and it doesn't give any boosts or anything like that. And the troop one you can also use. So again, it's by far my favorite because of the fleet size and the zombie size that it boosts up. This is defense, whatever. This one's HP. So yeah, I usually just use these two because there's only two I usually have, to be honest. But this is by far my favorite. The space fleet. So worth doing those two if you're going to go hard in an event and you have them available. So you're obviously bubbled, you got your buffs, your fleet expansions, your decoration, all that good stuff ready to rock and roll to start events. Just a couple other things of general advice briefly that I'll just want to elaborate on. So I think it's important to make sure that you are using, if you can, like a phone with Wi-Fi and data. A lot of times people will claim, their Wi-Fi dropped or their data dropped or something happened, and so they got kicked out of the event and they didn't have the backup on, and then they get hit or something like that. Whether or not that's that true, I don't know. You definitely can see the game crash a fair amount when there are a lot of people active in a nation, because they just don't bother having, I guess, the bandwidth or whatever it is to actually support a lot of people playing, which is really annoying at times. So you want to be kind of prepared for that, and I just usually try to use like my phone if I can as my main thing to play with, and then I have a tablet when I'm not at like work and stuff that I'm using also at the same time, because it lets me see multiple things at once basically. And I'll kind of go over that more when we actually get into some of the video and stuff, but that's also really important if possible to have kind of that second option to see things from other areas of the map or even in your home nation and stuff like that. So I went through a lot of the basics in the first of these videos on the kill event, so I don't want to go through all of the other basic stuff necessarily, at least not pertaining to the kill events themselves. Just something I don't think I actually covered though. So there's two strategies with fighting. Obviously, you can either do group attacks where you're attacking coordinated with your alliance members, any number of them, or just solo attacks where you're attacking by yourself. So the biggest advantage of solo attacking, I think, is that ideally if you see a bubble drop, for instance, you want to hit that right away usually. Like, you don't want to give the enemy time to realize that one of their nation members or one of their alliance members bubbles dropped, right? Because as soon as they do that, a smart alliance, a good alliance, is going to use that as basically an impromptu bubble trap, where, or at least a trap, they won't be able to bubble if not online, but where they'll reinforce heavily once they realize that. And so instead of hitting one or two people, you're hitting like a whole host of people. So one of the best ways to counter that is if you're paying attention and you're active, as soon as you see someone's bubble drop, you are speeding and hitting them right away. And you can post their coordinates quick to your alliance chat too and stuff. But the drawback of working as a group is it takes some time to communicate, and it is really important to communicate. So you need to make sure everyone's understanding everything, which can be an adventure, obviously, with the different languages and the translator from the 1950s that this game uses, which is just awful. You can try to use chat GPT or things like that, which are great, but they're not like seamlessly integrated into the game, so it's kind of hard to use those unless you're using other like Discord or Viber or other things to communicate with your alliance and stuff too. But you really need to communicate clearly who you're hitting and times and all that stuff. So as we'll see in this event, it takes a little more coordinating and time to do, and that can work against you if you're just trying to hit a target really fast. If you're a stronger person, it's also much easier to get away with just hitting somebody, because you'll probably be able to kill all their troops pretty easily and not lose many troops. Whereas if you're a weaker, newer player, you need more backup and support so that you're not hitting somebody and getting, crushed and losing a bunch of points for your nation. So it's easier to do that as you get stronger too, to hit people on your own and get a bunch of points and stuff like that. So the other drawback of attacking as a group is just you can't use an SOS, which I'm sure people probably know what that is, but that's just one of those alliance skills where if you activate it, none of your troops will die. They all, instead of dying, they all just become wounded and go to your hospital, assuming your hospital limit isn't full. So I'll talk more about that in the actual footage when we go through that stuff in real time. But you can't use that if you're attacking as a group, so you won't have that option, which is kind of a bummer. And the other thing is just if you're like attacking and hitting and retreating, you really have to communicate that clearly too, which can be difficult in real time, because you don't want half your people hitting and staying, and another half hitting and trying to retreat right away after that 10 seconds, and then it's just chaos and people are upset because they're losing way more troops and it's just chaotic and stuff. So it definitely takes some practice and some coordinating to get good at quickly organizing as a group and hitting targets together. Some of the people that I play with more often, like they'll just see from a report or me posting coordinates and they know I'm hitting, and they'll just speed hit right away because they have a fleet ready to join, and it's nice and seamless, and we don't have to waste a bunch of time even talking and trying to organize and stuff. It's just we're speed hitting as fast as possible, doing as much damage as we can. If things don't look good because they're reinforcing and stuff, then we probably have to retreat. And you'll see some of that too. It's important to think about those two types, whether you're attacking alone or with a group. If you're doing group attacks briefly, just remember there's 3 different types for that too. There's the rally, which is very simple. You literally just click on a target, hit this rally button, and then you just send your fleet, and then anyone can join. The drawback of a rally is that the fastest it's going to be is 5 minutes plus whatever the march time is to the target. So if the target's only 18 seconds away, you have to wait 5 minutes for everybody to get there. So that's how long everybody has to join your city, and then go out and do an 18-second attack. And you can also do like 10 or 30 minutes at the most. So rallies, honestly, as the game goes on in cross-nation events, are not used for anything other than hiding troops. Like nobody ever sends rallies to attack targets. It's way too slow. It takes too long. It's completely pointless, to be honest. So that's just not a thing anymore. In earlier gameplay, you'll see people do that, definitely, like in Nation and stuff like that, to go hit somebody who's unbubbled across the map. But it's not done, and for all intents and purposes in kill events, it's completely useless. Again, other than just a way to hide troops. The other things you can do are either timed attack or speed attacks. Basically, everything as you go along in this game, unfortunately, turns into speed attacks because it's just the way it is to make sure you're hitting targets before they can bubble or reinforce and things like that. So, but if you are going to try to do timed attacks, which you can do in certain events like Polar Wars, for instance, you can basically say a time in the event and everybody will leave at that time. You can just communicate clearly, like we're going to go at 11:10 or whatever it is, or in 30 seconds or whatever it is, and you're all marching from the same place to the same place, so the timing is the same. You don't have to coordinate that. If you're trying to attack a target in the nation and do a time attack, you'd have to, so you could attack, select like my fleet that I'm going to send, and it says 18 seconds only, right? So I would post that in the Alliance chat, like 0.18 or 18 seconds, and everyone else who's going to be hitting is going to post their time also, right? So you'll get everyone's times, and let's say there are 3 people who are all attacking, and one person is a minute away, and they're the furthest one away, then they're going to go first, and they'll usually just say like going in 3 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever it is, and then they're going to march there, and then you'll watch in the Alliance battles here and see the timing, and then you want to basically about 3 seconds before you need to leave, you want to leave this and go send your troops, if that makes sense. So let's say if it took you 18 seconds to get there, when you saw the person marching and they were at 21 seconds, then you would get out of here, you'd go to your target, and you'd send your fleet out, right? And that way you'd basically be hitting at about the exact same time because it's important to arrive at the same time. And then the way we do it, and you'll see this actually in the events, is we really just typically speed attack. Everything is kind of speed attacks now. You hit people with speed. So let's go to, see if I can. So I think I have some videos here. So for instance, this is just an old Iron Blood event. I just want to show you guys, like, so this is porting next to a target, and you're going to hit. And so he actually has his fleet out here with his Titans in plane attacking the enemy. So that can be a really good time to port and speed when they're fighting the enemy, so their Titans in plane are out. This person, though, you can see I ported and I speed hit. It took me like 2 seconds, port, speed hit. I figured that they had a lot of troops still in there because it's Iron Blood, and I wanted to give that army time to get back, the one with the planes and the Titans, because I felt like I could definitely win. So I just did this really brief version of it. This actually ended up being like a 30-something million point hit for me, and I was able to win, so it was good. If it was a really strong opponent, hitting them early when they're just starting their fight, where their Titans and plane are out, is great, because then they're stuck out. They can't bubble, they can't do anything, at least until the 10 seconds are up to retreat. Again, for this, I wanted their troops to get back. I didn't know how many troops they actually had at their city at the time, but I wanted to port hit and then have them get back in time so that I can get those points and I didn't waste port and gold and all that stuff to only have like hit a couple troops basically and stuff. So that's why I timed it the way I did, but you can see it's just very quick port. I have my fleet already selected. I just select the number and then I'm speed hitting, and it's like 2 seconds, and then I'm hitting and doing damage. And that's how you're going to do it as an individual, and you want to be extra fast, especially if you're not hiding your troops in your enemy nation, because that's the time then you can get hit. So, and then this is from the actual, so you can see this like down here, 21:15. We're just talking about the timing before, like when we're actually going to attack this enemy we have here that we found. And so we're just getting ourselves ready. I select the fleet that I had ready for this, set out, and I'm just speed hitting. So I drop my bubble here in an enemy nation, and then I am literally switching Brave Star on, which you'll see in every fight because he really helps a lot with the wounded, that he auto heals to save on healing and help prevent you from going over your hospital capacity. And then I'm just quick sending out 2 more fleets after that, and the fights are already done, right? So it was pretty quick. I didn't even show much of the actual fight because I was just moving troops out, and then I'm bubbling right away again. So, because what you don't want to do is risk getting hit, and this is just one example. I have a whole bunch of footage we're going to go over. But you can see we did a pretty good smack there on them, and they, unfortunately for them, let's Let's see here. Yeah, so we had 11 people attacking. They didn't even have time to reinforce, basically, because we were all ported and hit pretty fast, which is the goal. Usually you don't want them to get too many reinforcements in there and then have it go the opposite way that you want. So you can see, we basically had 11 people, 3.5 mil troops. We lost about 30 mil, and they lost 600 something million, unfortunately. So pretty rough hit for them there, with only less than about 400k left in their city now. And so what you'll see happen next is pretty common, where after we do a big hit, people are going to want to use the SOS attack now, and that's pretty common. Especially, like, I think Shocker found the city and posted it for us all to speed hit together. So then he kind of gets dibs, is the way we just do it, where he can SOS if he wants to, and that just means he can do like a timed hit and nobody else will join, so that he doesn't lose any of his troops. Generally, I don't recommend doing it this way, and this isn't the way I do it. It does work well if you're like a medium strength player or a little weaker player and you know your target you're hitting, so you know you can win. That's really important, because again, you want to kill more troops than you lose. So by weakening the enemy down to 400k, he sees their strength, he knows that he can win based on his strength, he knows how many troops are left, so he can go in there and do this timed SOS and doesn't have to worry about somebody marching in and screwing it up, which you can see I'm actually gonna have to recall, because I was not paying attention. I thought he'd already done it, so made things interesting just to keep him on his toes. But if I had joined on accident, then he wouldn't have been able to use the SOS, and then he would have actually had troops die. So that's why you don't want to do that, and he's communicating. I generally never ever do a planned SOS. I don't remember last time I did that. Again, for certain people, if they have limited time in the actual event, or again, if they want to make sure that they're hitting a target they know they can beat, it makes sense to just declare that in advance. The way it's really meant to be used, the way I use it, is I basically hit targets, and then if I run into trouble where I have enemies I can definitely get a lot of kills off of, but I'm going to lose a lot of troops in the process, that's where I use the SOS. If I hit somebody and they're way stronger, for whatever reason they have really strong reinforcements, I'm not using SOS there, I'm just retreating, right? You don't want to use SOS and then just let all your troops die, because you're still giving up way too many points then, and that's not the goal. You want to make sure you're finding good targets and optimizing your targets to get the most points possible. And so we'll see very soon, actually. I end up using mine too, because right in the start, this is middle of our fight. I just wanted to show this first because it shows a group hit, like I've been talking about with the speed attacks. And I'll start from the beginning, and right away at the beginning, you're going to see I actually end up using my SOS on people because I hit a group of people. So one thing with this, if I have time, prefer to always have a city in the enemy nation. You know who you're fighting in advance. You can get a city, put it in there, just to be able to look around and get a sense of like what you're up against in the nation. And I think that's really helpful to do it that way if you can, because then you'll know what the rules are. Are they purging and killing people before the event? Are there people who are going to be unbubbled and who have probably troops in their city? Who is the active players? Where are they at? Stuff like that. So you can just kind of get some general information by having a city in there for like the week beforehand if you have time. And that's something I was able to do, where I was able to just kind of look on with a second device and see that they were bubbling up pretty good right before the event, but see who wasn't bubbled and see them not purging certain people. And that is a huge advantage, right? When you jump into the fight, you know right where to go and who they're not purging if they aren't, which is a big mistake, and we'll see that in a minute actually. So here I'm just kind of healing some of my troops up and stuff. We activated a bunch of our alliance skills. I'll talk about that a little later too, with the alliance skills that we activate for the right opportune time and stuff. And so yeah, so we've already been in the event for a while in this particular footage and stuff here, and you can see I'm a little ahead of Simoon at that point and stuff like that in the kill event and in the week in general, but he'll definitely make a strong comeback too and help carry us to the victory later on. But that was, again, just a group attack there that you could see, and then we hide troops, get under bubbles as quick as possible, and then you can kind of disband them to get the troops back in your city when you're under a bubble there. So getting into, this is the actual just report here you can see quick of all of us attacking, and we came in hot with a lot of people there. So you can see breakdown of kills and deaths. We got quite a few there. Probably don't need to. I'm just getting the actual fight. see within like 10 seconds, not even, so that like 8-9 seconds, all the front row are dead. So it was very fast, and we had pretty good timing there where we were all in there within the first, for the most part, within like the first 10 seconds, which only took less than, literally basically starts at 3 seconds. So we took 13-14 seconds to win, which is good, and that it doesn't give them much time. When you hit that many people and they're all on time like you need to be, it does a good job of not allowing them to have a chance to reinforce with a bunch of troops. That's what you want. So I think this is the actual exact beginning here of, I'm not going to go through this full 2 hours, but there's a bunch of stuff in here that's a lot of action. So like I said, I scouted in advance with the city in there to be able to watch and see who was still unbubbled. And there were very few people, but they didn't purge a couple people, and they did have troops. So I poured in pretty much within a minute and was ready to rock and roll after purging our nation. And I poured it, and you'll see here right off the bat, I find the target that I was looking for, and I have my fleet set in advance already for what I want. I activated my Aeon skill because I knew that there was going to be a fight and there were going to be troops there for sure, from what I'd seen before. And I sped in and hit, and now I'm just hiding troops again quick. So unlike the Frenzy event, where I hide troops in advance always to be extra prepared, in these events, I will generally hide a fair amount of my troops, so I'm definitely under my hospital limit and stuff, especially because my main fleet's out. But I have no problem with keeping a few troops in just in case too, because that can give some good opportunities to recall and actually get some good kills against them. So what I was doing there is I briefly, let me show you here. So I poured in again because I just getting a little ahead of myself here. I knew the enemy was there. I scouted them in advance. I have my fleet set. I'm basically going to hit them, speed hit, after activating my Aeon, which is a big boost to shield to help protect me. And then I'm hiding my troops, and again I'm putting one full fleet here, you can see, in the actual mines there, and then 2 in these rallies. It's just important, if you don't have another fleet set that you're sending, and you're just sending 100% like I did on the mines there, you're sending a lot of all your front row first. So you lose kind of all your front row doing it this way, and that's not ideal if you're going to keep troops there to try to like fight if somebody would attack you. Because right when the event began, I was a little less concerned. You can see I also activated my SOS there when I saw that the fight was still going on after like 30 plus seconds or whatever it is. So that's important to note also, is like you don't have to, and you shouldn't activate your SOS too soon, right? So I waited until I knew that I was going to be in for a good fight and that they were reinforcing, and that I was still winning though too, to actually activate my SOS on this. And that's important to remember also, that you want to make sure that you're not activating it before the fight even starts, because once you activate it, the next fight you're in a solo battle, it will be active whether there's even troops or not. So you might as well wait and make sure that you actually have a target. And so you can see here, this was a huge hit right off the bat for me. I mean, I killed 1.65 million troops, right? So, and they actually lost 782-ish K, which is a pretty big loss. And I literally have I have no wounded because I activated my SOS, but I would have lost, or had 35K wounded, which would have been a mixture of wounded and killed. So I probably didn't even need to use my SOS there yet, to be honest. I could have saved it since I had Aeon active, and there was a pretty good chance that I was going to be able to hold my own okay, but it's fine. I used it anyways. I also used the slaughter skill. I don't know if you saw me click on that. That's just another skill that will kill troops during the actual fight. And there's also an exterminate from Panda that I didn't activate here, but these are just some of the different either breakthrough skills or commander skills. So as I already mentioned, I like to save my SOS if I can for a situation where I know I'm going to win, right? So I'm going to get all these kills. If I was going to get smoked, I would just retreat. I don't want to use it then and then just fight, because I'm going to be screwing my nation over by giving them way more kills than I get. So I knew this was going to be a great kill opportunity for me here, and I didn't want to miss out on that, but I didn't want to lose too many troops either, so I activated the SOS. Probably a little prematurely here, if I'm being honest, but whatever. Better late than ever. So, or better use it now, and instead of just holding it for the whole event and not even end up using it. So I do like to save it for more more costly fights later on usually, but it happens, and it's not a big deal. So that's the actual first fight that you see there. And then what I'm going to do here is jump out, and I want to just show you guys here's the actual fight. So you can see I have A on active, which is the purple little shield guy there. And you can see I'm holding up fine. And it basically lasts for the first 13 seconds. And then now it goes away. And that's because it's at 3 seconds when the fight really starts. And so it lasts till 13 seconds. It would be less time if they broke the shield, but they didn't have enough firepower to break it. It just ended at the 10-second mark. And so you can see here, I'm pretty much wrecking them. And then that one person that came in late, it's not a good idea to send troops in late. You're going to see that as a common theme here. Like, you don't want to be, if they're already losing the fight, right? If they're already losing, sending more troops into the battle is not a good idea. Like, I already had smoked their whole front row, and I was past their mid row into their back row basically already, their last damage dealing troops, when reinforcements get there. And then they basically sent almost, no real front row resistance anyways. I just plowed through them, and it really just adds more easy kills for me at that point. And so reinforcing late like that is not a good idea when I have that many troops left. I'm that much stronger. It's just feeding me kills. For me, it's great. I wish they would have sent 10 more like that. It would have just kept giving me more and more points. So I think that's a big thing to understand. I'm just going to recycle here, but you can see that. So that was my first hit there. So, and again, I prefer to use SOS spontaneously, not as a planned thing like you already saw. I also activated my Brave Star, which, just so you guys could see what that does, it's just really, so you can see that the post-war rescue in effect for survivors, it basically just it heals automatically some of your wounded troops, and that's going to come in handy later on in some of the big fights you see where I'm defending and stuff like that too. In this attack and this SOS, it really didn't play much of a role, but I'm always in the habit of doing that anyways. And so getting back into this here, so I think we're about like a minute in or something like that. So yeah, there you can see. And I could just go in again and try to smack them right away again and kill a bunch more troops, because there's still a lot of troops there. But like you saw with the other video, a lot of other people like to use like an SOS and get a chance too, and I'm not trying to like cannibalize and take all the kills. Like, I'd rather let some of the other people and then the Alliance and Nation get a chance to hit too a little bit here. And so I'm just trying to like basically share some kills. I'm just gonna hit another target that has probably a couple troops at least, instead of going back over and over again, just because I like to give other people a chance to get involved or use their SOSs and stuff like that too. And sometimes I'll do a group hit with people, but again, if it's not coordinated in advance, I get worried that I'm gonna accidentally cause people not to be able to use their SOS and stuff. And so you can see I'm healing more troops there. In that last battle, I actually healed the troops that I had and made sure my hospital was completely open then. So you can hide troops in your hospital at the beginning of events if you're doing a lot of purging or kill a lot of troops. You just have to remember, if you're doing that you have to heal those troops when you're fighting, or if you're in a fight before it ends, so that your hospital's full again, or fully open, so that it's not full, so that you have an open capacity to hold more troops. If you go into it with a bunch of troops already in the hospital and then you fight more and you take more hits, it's easy to end up over your hospital capacity, which I'll go over at some point here too, I think, because you'll see some of my fights and what I can kind of hold for troops and stuff. So, and here just basically messing around a little bit, hitting a couple targets, not really doing a whole lot, giving people a chance to kind of do their own thing with the SOS attacks and stuff like that. So there's not a whole lot of action right here. This is the WWP. I was able to see in advance with my other city that they had a couple people who were open. At least one or two of them definitely had some troops in them, because they did not purge them. So, and on that note, I like to have ideally like my tablet, if I can, available. So I wait here. Yes, they're reinforcing, but I didn't know for sure if they were using an SOS or not. So I kind of just messing around, waiting. And then now I see it's basically over. So then I just sped in and hit afterwards. So, and it was actually, I think, Samoon who hit them, and he's like stronger than pretty much anybody else. So he was fine. He wasn't going to SOS that anyways. But I didn't want to join in and root an SOS for somebody else. Also, joining at the very end of the fight is pointless, because you won't really even get any kills then. You'll just kind of maybe lose a few troops and not really do much of anything when the fight ends. So it's better to kind of wait till right afterwards. And I just sped in and did another hit. I gave it a couple minutes, so other people hit as well, and then I just basically did one hit there and then kind of call it quits on that city, just to get a couple of extra kills again too. So, but as I was saying, I like to have two devices if I can, like using my phone as my primary device to actually play on, and then I always have my tablet if I can up, watching things that are hopefully relevant as kind of a second set of eyes. And that's actually really helpful and important. I don't think people do that very often, because they probably just don't necessarily think of it, but it helps me a lot. So I can either be watching like in our nation while I'm in the enemy nation to see if people are dropping bubbles or there's stuff going on that I need to jump back and either help with or intervene on and stuff like that. But also it lets me, and this will come up in a lot of this video, where I'm basically parked with my second device over their city, watching the activity and watching their troops in their city and stuff while I'm messing around on my phone doing stuff here. So I can still see kind of in my periphery what's going on with the enemy stuff, even when I'm in my own city doing my own stuff and not actually looking out. So that's really helpful. Having a second device when I'm not at work and stuff is very useful for kill events. It also lets you kind of scour the map almost twice as fast too, and kind of pick up a lot of extra targets or find people quicker potentially if you have a second device looking around and keeping an eye on things. And so that's pretty helpful to do as well. So those are some of the simple tips and tricks and stuff like that you can see. And here I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to remember here if I slow march, I want to say maybe, just to see if, I think I just try to slow march them to see if they'll reinforce and give me a chance to, let's see, I'm eventually going to do it here. Sooner or later, yeah, because I didn't have Oregon set there. I had the wrong person. So anyway, you'll see I'm just going to slow march, and that's a strategy you can use where instead of speed attacking, I'm just kind of slowly going toward the enemy to see if there's any chance that they potentially will reinforce and give me a chance to get more kills. And so that's a strategy I use here and there, and I use that later on against the top alliance to get some extra kills and stuff in a fight. So I'll show you guys that too later. But this is just how it all began. We're kind of trying to hit a couple bubbles, unbubbled cities here. BTR, I think it was BTR, top alliance in this nation, was all bubbled really tight at first. They did a good job of kind of taking care of their own stuff, so there wasn't much to do right at the very beginning with them. That will definitely change here in a little bit when we get into some good fights with them. But they did a good job of being bubbled and being disciplined early, so we were trying to take advantage of these couple cities down here and stuff, I think, before we get into a bit of a bigger fight here. So anyways, so yeah, I think I just looked around, not a lot going on. I tried to slow march here. You can see my attacks en route. I hit that city. There's basically not only did they not reinforce, but they recalled. So there's like just nothing there really now. So you can see my AN still active down there, nothing doing. So, and because I have AN active too, I'm also, you'll see for the time period where I have that active, I'm less keen on hiding my troops as well, because there's no penalty for defending here. This nation that we're fighting against has probably 2 people that are slightly stronger than me, not too much stronger. But if they hit me in my city with all my troops and with AN active, there's no way they can even get close to getting through it. So I'm not too worried about bubbling. I just am ready to make sure that I am recalling my troops when they're out and bubbling up then, so that I don't get hit by a bunch of people and end up getting smoked. So, but again, with AN active, I have such a big initial 10-second buffer in that fight on top of everything else, and I have about 1.4 million front row troops to match up with my 1.3-ish million back row damage dealing troops. So I have a big buffer, and that's going to be really important. You'll see that with a lot of the fights and stuff that we do. That is so crucial and makes a huge difference too. So let's see here. Let's go ahead another maybe minute or so. So just moving ahead a teeny bit here. I think we find basically BTR has a city that's open, and so I just hit somebody, didn't get that many points, but anyways, they have somebody we'll see here soon in the BTR alliance that people start to try to hit in a little bit here. And I think our 2 strongest players, Surveyor, who's I think Pyramid Head in this particular fight, he just changed his name, but Surveyor, him and Simoon are our 2 strongest people kind of by far. They're just in a tier of their own as far as their strength compared to the rest of us. And so I think they both are going to end up hitting here in a second against one of the enemies who has tons of reinforcements coming up, as you'll see. And normally that's probably not ideal. They can get away with it, I think, because, let's see if we can find them down here, because they're strong enough that, so I think this fight actually just ended, and they had tons of reinforcements there. So, but because they're so strong, they're able to still make out pretty much even though they're fighting a ton of people. And you can see Simoon down there saying you can SOS even, so he's kind of doing a planned one. Generally, I think he doesn't do that either. He kind of likes to probably more impromptu, when he gets into a fight that he's going to win, but it has, a tough enemy potentially. But I think the problem was we were just like starved for good kill events and good fights for such a long time, it seems like lately, that anytime they can get kills now, they're just like going for it. And so you can see here, I mean, he basically fought 23 people by himself, right? And he still almost broke even. So he can kind of get away with that because he's so strong. He lost a little more than he technically killed. So it wasn't an ideal situation, I guess. But again, he and Simon are the only two that can really get away with doing something like that. The rest of us, like, I would never even consider trying to hit these 23 people because there are just too many strong people there that I would never be able to get enough points for it to negate the points I lost, if that makes sense. And even he, being as strong as he is, still technically didn't quite get there. So that's, again, important to pick your targets wisely. It's just we've had such crappy luck before this with finding good targets and finding people that want to fight that I think they were just like, as soon as they got a good opportunity in a city unbubbled, they were hitting it. So, and you can see pretty soon here when we start to do some hits and stuff, we're like definitely a little rusty, and or this is our actual first time really as a full new alliance together, working together in the joining of the two kind of full active alliances, and we haven't really actually done much fighting and stuff together. It's actually pretty brand new for us in this coordinating of events and stuff. So, but anyways, you can see we're actually talking about doing a speed attack on them after this, and so we kind of go through coordinating that, and then you can see some moon hits here too. And I mean, again, just like when they have that much heat, when they're coming that strong, so I kind of pour it over there, get myself ready to join the fray. But even when we have somebody really strong like Simoon, like the amount of just people attacking and hitting his front row, they're just going to burn through it before he can really do a lot of burning through them. And you can see my vitality is already gone there because I was literally doing so much purging before this. But anyway, he probably basically breaks even also, because even though he's so much stronger than everybody else, there's just so much firepower coming at him that it's not something he's able to hold up against long enough to really do a ton of extra damage. So that numbers do matter in fights, and sometimes they can be detrimental, but in general, if you have overwhelming numbers, even against somebody really strong, they can actually offset that pretty well. And that's what we would see here when they have like 25 people reinforcing against like survivor or something like one person, that those numbers can definitely offset that much more than in some of the other situations we'll see where the numbers are a bit more even, and it can be actually a bit more detrimental almost for them. So I'm basically just getting ready to speed attack too, and I'm just kind of hanging out, hiding some of my troops and all. So you can set, so I sent out, I don't know if you saw that, but I sent out my attack fleet, and now I'm just putting 2 rallies in hiding here. So that way when I attack, because there's a lot of active people on them, as you can tell, there's 25, 30 people, the chances that they may try to hit my city while I'm attacking them, I don't want to take that risk, and so I'm at least hiding enough troops to keep my numbers under my hospital wounded capacity limit in preparation for this. So, because I know we're gonna be hitting and up against a pretty tough opponent here, and the numbers are not going to be in our favor. When you can kind of tell already, like we're trying to get enough people, like they're going to have 20, 30 people at least, and so we want to have a good chunk of people too if we were to actually try to win the fight. So we're just coordinating this here as best we can, and then in the process of this, you can see, I don't know if you saw Bizarre down there, so I'm activating, so he's actually going to go in and set a lot of our alliance skills, which are really important, and that's something that during your fights in these kill events, your leadership needs to decide on when they want to use them, and there's a whole bunch of different ones you can use that help out. And let me just show you guys really quick what I'm talking about here. So if you go down, let's restart here. Come on, load up. So if you go to quickly Alliance Institute, Alliance skills. So you can see you can activate a bunch of different skills. So this emergency room, you basically 22% of your troops that die are turned into wounded troops that you can call back, and you get this every 8 days for 4.5 hours when you activate it. So you can work on buffing up this skill for like the duration and the amount of troops that you rescue too in your alliance stats, but you can activate that, and this is really only important in Void, but it is important in Void to use because it helps with losses, right? And that's the only one you're going to have losses in. There's no reason to use this in Frenzy or anything like that. The other ones you can use, so you can activate this increased speed, which it's an hour of 9%. I don't know that it makes that much of a difference. Speed is good, obviously, the less speed attacks you have to do, but you're always speed attacking and you're always going to have to use the speed ups regardless, so I don't know that it really cuts that much out, to be honest. And then fortify attack for an hour, you get 12% increase to all your troops, where we're at right now. Same with HP, we're at 12% for an hour, and then defense 12% for an hour. So see, these are all stats that can help. And then the healthcare is what the speed, and you'll see this is active too for when you have wounded troops, how much faster, and that's actually really helpful. So 6 hours is quite a long time, and 40% is a lot. So that's actually, and it's only level 7, so you actually get a lot out of this. And you'll see when you're building up these huge hospital times, that really does help a lot to have troops that you can filter back into the fight, and that'll come up in a little bit. You'll definitely see that in my fights. And then the shield all thing, just so you know, so I mentioned this at least, ours is an hour and 40 minutes. That means an hour and 40 minutes before every kill event ends, we're activating this. That's basically when we use it. In an emergency, if somebody with a lot of troops dropped their bubble, you could theoretically use it at that point too to shield them, because unfortunately, once an event starts, once these kill events start, you cannot kick out a member unless you have every single person in your alliance back in your own nation, right? Which never is going to happen. Like, once the event starts, people are doing all over the place, willy-nilly, doing it whenever they want, and there are for sure going to be people in the enemy nation, and if that's the case, you cannot boot a member out. So that means if somebody drops a bubble, you either have to reinforce them, which is fine and void, typically, but you don't want to have to do that in Frenzy, and you can't kick them out. So it's good to make sure you talk to the other alliance leaders and have some sort of communication during events to where you're helping to kill each other's cities. If they drop bubbles in Frenzy, they're going to get their troops back anyways, right? So you don't want them giving those, and they're going to get killed anyways, no matter what. You might as well be the ones to kill them and not give those points to the enemies. So you want to make sure you're communicating with other alliances to coordinate this. And then this is the other option to the shield all that you can use, but almost always you want to be saving this for, because a lot of times people, I feel like, count on that. So you want to be saving it for us to be like hour and 40 minutes of the event. You can bubble, and then unless somebody was actually in a fight when you press this, they won't be able to bubble, unfortunately. So you want to make sure nobody's actively in the middle of a fight. And then otherwise people only come out of the bubble if they actively do that, and sometimes there will be idiots who do that. So you have to talk to people and make sure they're not doing anything stupid and stuff like that. So it's worth definitely considering that, because I will say, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but just while I'm back here, I'm pretty happy to be in that second round. I'm happy that I made it into to first place and all. But more importantly, this was a really close battle here, right? Like, if you look, this second one that we'll go over toward the end of the video, we were in a really tough battle. They had a couple of really strong players and one person who was quite a bit stronger than all of our players, and that really makes things tough, especially in Frenzy, because you have those stupid towers that you have to try to occupy, or they can just take all the points, and so it takes a lot of deciding on how you're going to approach that, and you'll see that. And so we were in a very, very close battle. I think we won, what is this, 87? We won by like 87 million. That's nothing, right? Like, that is one person who has less than 2 million troops even, dropping bubble and getting hit a couple times. Like, that's easily over 100 million, really. So it only takes one person, and so that's why that last hour, 40-minute shield all is really important, to make sure nobody drops bubbles when you have this lead going into the end. That can be costly, and so that was kind of nerve-wracking, and just the whole thing trying to make sure that nobody does anything reckless toward the end, and selfish, trying to just get points even though they were just for themselves and not for the nation's benefit. So that was a skill we activated, and that for the most part people stayed under the bubble, but you never know. So those are the actual alliance skills I wanted to talk about and mention. Now jumping back into the video here. So yeah, we're getting ready still here, activating skills. And then you could just see there I activated the extra 10% skill that I've talked about in other fleet videos. That gives me an extra 10% fleet size. Getting ready to rock and roll here to hit the enemy and hopefully do some damage. And so I already had Aeon active. I have this buff active, and we're like communicated. We got all our alliance skills active, so we're ready to kind of rock and roll here and hit them, hopefully in a coordinated fashion, as we'll see here in just a second. So waiting. You can see these like the different like Stormbolt and other skills where you can activate that basically increase the damage taken or decrease the damage your troops do in your city. and I think I was going to activate it, but I'm pretty sure actually somebody else had already done that in the process, which is good because I don't even have like a good skill active for these. I didn't prioritize those at all. I don't think they're very useful. So I didn't even have very good skills to put on this, which is fine. Luckily, somebody else had much better ones anyways. So, and they're just talking about down there like the troop distributions, all that stuff that I already know, and you can see people starting to hit. So I just click my fleet and I'm setting out and speeding in there, and I'm a tiny bit later than other people are, and then I'm just, of course, as always, I'm swapping over to my Stormbow to make sure, or excuse me, to my Brave Star to make sure that I have that extra buff of troops that I'm gonna get back, which I'm gonna need because it's gonna be brutal. And I was actually watching this with my other city view as well, and I could see things were not going great for us. We were kind of like stuck in a stalemate for a long time as we are kind of like battling their front row, and they're kind of battling ours, and we're just kind of stuck there. And we have a lot less troops, but we had stronger troops there. So, and then I just speed my. I was like, might as well speed up my hospital here, just get the troops out of there. And I knew this was gonna, obviously, it's not gonna be where I lose enough troops that it's gonna fill my hospital, but just out of kind of habit and stuff like that. And then I'm already just making sure my biochemical hospital's empty too. And again, these things aren't really that important in this individual fight, but I was watching it from my other. Anyways, the one thing that I didn't do though, because I was messing around too and stuff, is I didn't retreat when some of the other people did. So that's, again, I already talked about, like, you want to be on the same page with retreating and stuff like that. So you can see here, pretty costly in that we legitimately lost 1.3 million troops. Divide over 11 people, you know, that's a little over 100K a person, just on average, you can see. And then, I mean, they brought clearly just way more numbers. So they have 11.3 million troops, and we have like not even 4.5 million troops. We have way less troops. That being said, you know, we lost quite a bit less than they did. I mean, we killed 4.9-ish million, and they killed about 2.7 million. So even though they had the numbers there by far, and they won, and we also lost a lot of troops, most importantly, we scored quite a bit higher than them there on that battle, which is really important because we came in with a decent little bit of a lead into the kill event. So our goal and the strategy that we were trying to make sure everyone was following was that we're going to fight and be aggressive as long as we're winning the point battles and not losing our lead by being stupid and reckless. And if people want to fight and they lose troops, that's fine. That's what these events are for. But we want to do it in a responsible way where we're not losing the actual point battles and they're getting a chance to close the actual score and have a chance to beat us. And so that was kind of the priority with this. And you can see we definitely won the point battle here, really, even though it was quite costly for us. And they did a great job of really hitting with numbers and kind of stopping us dead in our tracks. You can also see that failed attack, and I lost 30 vitality for each of these, which is kind of brutal. So just another thing to make note of. So let me just show you guys the actual battle here. Should be this one here. So again, you can see something worth noting too is, so with Aeon being active, it's active from the first person that gets there. So that's another, and so part of the reason it's so important, like you can see when this battle starts, that 3-second marker, I'm pretty close to joining them, like 1 or 2 seconds behind. And that's really important that everybody gets there as fast as possible at the same time, because you want the synergy, you want the officer effects working on all of your people. If people are lagging in these attacks by 5-10 seconds, they're missing out on a lot of this at times, and that can be really costly for your chances of doing max damage and of winning. So it's really important to be on the same page when you guys are doing this and hitting together as a coordinated group. And with speed attacks, you should hopefully be able to do a pretty good job of that. You just go relatively at the same time, and you're just max speeding in until you hit. And so it's pretty straightforward, I think. And again, I think let's look at the actual footage here. So you can see I get there. Our Aeon already now basically made it a short period that you can see it's still going strong, and now it's broken. So it almost lasted the full time period. But again, if you arrive late and somebody else has Aeon active, you don't get your own 10 seconds. It's just their 10 seconds. So that's why it's important to get there at the beginning of the fight too, as I said, for the kind of utility of having all of the troops and all of the armies getting the benefits from the officers. And so you can see we actually do a pretty good job here of getting through but then they just had more reinforcements come, and they had a couple of strong people coming in too later on, and they end up getting a lot more front row that we just can't contend with anymore, unfortunately, as we're trying to kind of get through to the end of the fight there, and then things kind of turned against us. We retreated, which is fine. It's not a big deal at all to do that, but definitely a little costly, I would say, and as far as like the numbers that we had, but it was good that I think we got a chance to actually start attacking together and coordinating, and that's important to do. So anyways, let me scoot out of this here and go back into the actual video here. I think we're at like 13 minutes or something like that. So I guess we'll just see this again. Have to watch the painful attack again, so yeah. And as I mentioned though too, you can see that they came in late with some of their melee and stuff. A couple of people, and that changed the battle for them for the better, because they still had a lot of back row left, and we were running on our last leg. And so in that particular instance there, if you remember, I think it was worth mentioning that the later groups of attacks and reinforcements that they sent actually was helpful, whereas a lot of times it's harmful, as you'll see, because it's late in a losing battle, and so it just gives and feeds more easy kills, whereas as if it's a close battle or one that you can win, that reinforcements can actually help tip the scale in that person's, or that whoever's reinforcing, in their favor, and be actually pretty beneficial, like you saw there. And we'll see in some of the other fights later, and we saw in a fight earlier, that like one or two people just reinforcing late is actually not a good idea and detrimental. It just gives us easy points. And so you can see they're just talking about the distributions and time to go exactly right there for when we're gonna go, and you can see numbers coming in. So I just speed in there, pretty straightforward. But again, worth mentioning, we did lose, but we probably killed about 1.5 times as many people as they did. So, and you can see gold plane against gold plane there, pretty strong armies. And then we're at like 11 against 26, and then they get 27, and they get a couple more people late there, getting into the 30s, and that extra reinforcements late with all the melee and stuff just kind of overwhelms our last little bit. And we did not have very many people in this fight, unfortunately. So I'm just going through again. I'm just speeding stuff. I always just, as a habit, free up my hospitals just in case, even though it was completely unnecessary here, really. So and then yeah, you can see they're at like 32 people or whatever it is, and so we finally lose. And I didn't even end up retreating on like a couple other people, just kind of whatever. But it is what it is. I bubble up then. You guys already saw the report there. So it happens. I don't remember exactly how many I lost in this. Looks like I lost, 150K. So expensive, but it's been a long time since I've been losing troops, honestly, because we haven't had very many good kill events, and I'm usually pretty careful, and so I needed to purge some troops out here because it was getting hard to hide my army. So I don't actually mind. And again, if I can kill 530K, and then I lose half that, between the wounded and the ones that actually die, I'm fine with that. So, and you can just do those reactive alliance skills, and then you'll see with the, so this is the, just so you can see, this is my emergency room, and you can see all the troops that I get back from there. When I go in there, they're waiting, so you have to go in. And I'm pretty sure I'll do that here just so you guys can see in the emergency room, which again, only needed in void, because you only have troop losses. But I go into the institute, and then you can see emergency room there's active, and you have to use some of your alliance points there to just heal those troops. But it's nice, 22% or something like that, I think it was, that it helps to heal, which is good. So, and then we kind of talk about another hit and coordinating stuff here for a little while and everything, but I think in the meantime they might actually just end up bubbling as we're trying to coordinate our attacks again. And it's just like I mentioned before, it takes some time, which is not ideal when you're trying to actually do some damage and get some stuff going on. But with that many reinforcements and them being as coordinated as they are, it is necessary for us to actually make sure we're on top of things and coordinated. What I'm trying to do here in a minute, I think in this part, is I wanted to basically go hit while Aeon active and then retreat and just show you guys what that looks like with inactive, you get that 10 seconds of extra like protection basically. So that 10 seconds that you have to stay in the fight before you can retreat for, I have A on active, and I was hoping to be able to demonstrate how you can get points, and then before your front row gets too much damage and you lose too much, get out of there and still score a lot even against a tough opponent. And I think that's what I was looking to do here next, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check though when that is here. It's gonna take a little bit of time. But that was kind of my goal, as I'm looking around for targets and to try to find somebody else to hit. And you can see I already got, all the points that I needed for the nation with that one, actually honestly the one hit in the beginning where I killed like 1.6 million. That kind of did it. And so just going through this here, I think as I mentioned before, it's good that you do these types of things with your alliance to work on coordinating things together and be on the same page. It's usually better to, if you're working out the kinks or you're doing things newer, to probably try and do stuff more in these type of attacks in the frenzy, because there's no actual troop losses, and so it's a little bit easier to get away with. And ideally you always want to be the ones attacking, and that anyways you don't want to be defending because of the importance of the multiplier, the benefit for attacking relative to defending. And so that's probably just something worth noting. And anyway, we're just talking about down there, like, should we attack, what should we do, trying to coordinate things, blah blah blah. Unfortunately, I think in trying to decide and coordinate this attack and stuff, and this group that's mainly talking here, like Zara and Mandy and stuff, they've been together forever in 1047, so they have a good rapport. They're on the same page, and we're all kind of trying to just get there on the same page with them about whether we're going to attack or not attack. Again, we won the point differential by like quite a bit, so it wouldn't be the worst thing if we are coordinated to attacking. We lose troops for sure, but as long as we're scoring more points than there, that's what really ultimately matters for the nation. But we don't have the numbers right now, I don't think, to do that, and you need to have some decent numbers in addition to some strong people to really make it worthwhile. Otherwise you're just going to be like hemorrhaging troops and stuff. And again, we are winning by quite a lot in this, so we don't need to be too aggressive or too reckless. Like, we can afford to be smart and patient and not too nuts about things, because honestly there's no reason to risk that. Like, it's just not a good idea to take huge losses and to give them a chance to kind of close the gap, really. So, but anyway, normally when you post these cities like this, like, they're asking where everyone is, that's why they're posting. But normally when you post there, it's because like you're indicating that you're like under attack a lot of times. That's how we post that. And I'm just looking in the alliance battle stuff quite a bit here too, keeping an eye on things. That alliance battle thing, it's important in this event in particular. I want to stress that you should not ideally be hiding troops in rallies at cities, because what happens is that alliance battle report that I keep looking at there and keep referencing, that gets full of like 50 reports of people attacking cities and doing rallies on cities, and it gets really hard to sort through that to see if somebody is being attacked. So just another little important aside, in Frenzy you're not reinforcing really, or shouldn't be, so it doesn't matter. But in Void, where you're always trying to make sure if somebody's getting hit, you see it right away and you can reinforce them, you really want everybody attacking and doing rallies at those ruins that you can see there, for instance. So it's really important to set rallies to the ruins, hide in the mines. You can march long fleets across the map and across that black slow dirt in the middle to like a target on the other side of the, like a mine or a resource plot on the other side, to just slowly hide troops that way without it showing up in there too. But you don't want to have a bunch of rallies on cities in this because of that clutter and how hard it is to then see when somebody is actually under attack. So just another little thing I wanted to mention while I'm kind of killing time here, looking around, waiting for somebody to target, hoping to find somebody who will drop a bubble here in the near future. And you know that like they just had a pretty decent participation, and you know that they killed a lot of our troops even though they technically lost the point battle. So it would make sense that they're going to try to drop bubble, is what I'm thinking at this point. Like, somebody's going to try and drop a bubble and trap us and stuff like that. Just to note, you can see this city right here, this with the orange. In case you didn't already know, this orange bubble you see here, that person is in our nation, right? So they're in our nation when they have this orange bubble, just so you can see that as a reference point. These blue bubbles, people are in their own nation bubbled. This person with the orange is in our nation somewhere, up to no good probably. So just so you can see that. So again, we're just kind of killing some time here, waiting around, hoping that somebody drops a bubble. And it should, you'd think, only be a matter of time, right, before somebody's going to actually drop one. me scoot ahead a little here. Did I miss something there? I think I hit somebody. That was already seen. I was looking at some of my reports and stuff, I think there. Going through that. Oh yeah, this is where, so let me go back a little bit here. So I think they drop a bubble there, yeah. So this is where I was hoping to show you guys, and I was actually, I didn't speak to him in the Nation or the Alliance about this because I just wanted to do this hit with Aeon active and then retreat and show you guys what that looks like as a good example, and just also get a sense of how many points I can actually score from that. I didn't even pay attention to that. They're like talking about go or not go and doing stuff, and so I just hit, and then when I hit, actually there were only 2 people there really, but then they're ready clearly and they reinforce very fast. And so you can see if you can't withdraw within the first 10 seconds. So I was showing that, and then I hit withdraw again. And what it's interesting because I basically hit the withdraw and should have retreated, but then unfortunately it didn't actually retreat. So I don't, sometimes I don't know why that happens that way, but I just didn't retreat. Like the goal was to leave, and unfortunately it didn't work, and you'll see that in the actual battle. So kind of annoying, and of course I didn't even have Brave Star set there, so I was gonna retreat, but pretty painful. But when you think about it, let me just get back to 1 second, bear with me here. So yeah, you can see we only had a couple people, and they had 10.3 mil, only had about 1.5. But because of the people that were hitting, we hit pretty fast, and a couple of stronger people, we actually didn't quite break even with them. Like they killed a little bit. Well, so we actually killed probably more than they did actually a little bit, but unfortunately we lost about 517,000 troops permanently from that. So kind of painful. And they killed 1,081,000. We killed about 1.3 mil. So we actually did okay for ourselves there, even though there was only 4 of us against 30. It does kind of give you a sense of when you're hitting as the strongest people against a lot of people who are a couple strong ones and a couple or a lot of weaker ones, you do kill and cannibalize a lot of those easier kills still, and actually can kind of basically still break even. But I wouldn't really recommend that because obviously we're losing a lot of troops there. So let me just see if I can show this report really quick. I think it's this one, yeah. So you can see right there, pretty costly, losing another 517K between us. And you can see here, Aeon doesn't even get blown up right there. Like, didn't even make it because there's just so many people hitting, and I didn't have that many. And you can see I was trying to retreat there. It says I retreat, but I don't think I actually did. I should have retreated with 217K left, but I don't know. It just didn't. It didn't seem like it showed up the way it normally would in that situation with retreating. And it didn't show me leaving. So I don't know if there was like lag issue or what was going on. Like I should have had about 217K troops left, and you can see. Oopsies. Let's just. So you can see, I lost 130K, so it's possible I did get out of there, and I killed about 375K. So Moon came in and killed a ton. So like between him and I, we were killing an awful lot, and unfortunately I feel bad for like Devins and Nemo who came in and hit too, because it put them in a situation where they're losing a lot of troops relative to the ones they're killing, and so I feel bad, and that's again one of the reasons when hitting with group and stuff, it's important to communicate. I was hoping to just show again the hit and then the retreat with Aeon active and not cost a bunch of troops. So I felt really bad that they lost troops from this and what was kind of uncoordinated looking, because it was not meant to even be a group thing. That's why I didn't even post it, and I should have probably said I was going to do this for the purposes of trying to demonstrate this and stuff, and that was completely my fault. So I feel bad, and that's amateur hour right there. So I don't know if they're going to watch this, but definitely felt really bad, and wish I would have mentioned that more clearly. instead of just messing around trying to focus on that stuff, I should have told them in advance so we were all kind of ready together and stuff. So anyways, lesson learned, I suppose. So getting back into, what are we at here? So I think I just mess around now for a little while here. Nothing really major happens. We talk about hitting again and figuring out what we're going to do, and then I think they basically bubble up again because I think they're realizing, they're chasing points big time, and they're realizing that even when we hit sometimes in uncoordinated fashion or with not that many people, we're still either getting a lot more points than them, or even in like the worst case, we're still basically breaking even on points. And so I think they're realizing that strategy that they were doing is not working great, and they bubble that person up, and what they end up doing is they drop bubble on their probably strongest or second strongest person, which I think is Pablo. And so I think they're trying to get us to attack him, which we don't do, and we have a little bit of a debate. I can skip ahead for you and talk about like they're basically discussing once Pablo drops his bubble whether or not we should attack, and I'm not going to attack him, and I tell them that, and I think some other players do too, and they realize that, and you're going to see when they start hitting us here in a minute why that is. And so a strong player having like 400 or 500k troops reinforce another city is one thing, but a strong player having 3 million of their own troops at their city, all at that super high buffed up level, and then getting reinforced by other people is a whole different beast. And so it is a horrible idea to attack somebody really strong like him with all of his troops in his city and then them reinforcing him, instead of having weaker players that they're dropping bubbles on as targets and then reinforcing those players where we're able to basically still win those fights. And again, the strategy here is we're winning by like, I don't know, well over like a 2 billion points here. Like we're up a huge amount. So like we're playing to win these events, and we want to have fun and attack too, but we need to do it in like the smartest possible way so that it's benefiting the actual nation, which is the priorities I've said multiple times. So we need to do that, and that's what we do. And I think it pays off pretty well here. You're going to see some pretty good attacks coming up. And so I can probably just start to skip. I feel like I can just skip ahead here pretty soon. I just kind of mess around, hitting farms, unbubbled, trying to target just random stuff in front of them. And the goal is just to like draw their attention. I have Aeon active, so I'm not really worried about like, even if they come in numbers, I've got a pretty good buffer with Aeon, and with quite a few of our active people are strong people who are online and paying attention. I know that, so that's why I can kind of do this a little bit more. You don't necessarily want to be too risky with these things. You have to be smart. And so as you'll see, I'm just looking at some of the reports there. Nothing great. Yeah, so we're talking, you can see he's very strong. So Pablo basically dropped his bubble. So the thing with him dropping his bubble too is that I kind of figure he's waiting to get attacked, and I'm less worried that he's going to try and attack at that moment, although it could still happen. And when I'm doing all this stuff, I'm also using my other account to look back in our nation, see what's going on, because I have farms in our nation that I can log into and see what's going on, or I can log into my other account here, which was that little spy city, just to look around. It's much easier to look around when you're actually in the city versus trying to look from another nation where you can't like zoom out or anything. So I'm just kind of messing around, and he's talking about this. So Moons are saying what I'm thinking. So luckily he's on the same page as me and knows what's up. Like if he has full troops in his city and stuff, like we should not be attacking, and we're not going to attack. Like I'm not even going to entertain that, because that would just be a foolish idea to risk losing a lot of points. And you're going to see what happens when they do something similar by attacking me, relative to attacking some of the other players, and how much they get absolutely spanked because of it. So, and it would be, that's not like a brag on me, if we attacked like Pablo, it'd be the same concept, and the same thing would happen to us, I think, within a similar margin. So we're not going to do that. Like, it's just foolish. They're talking about it for a while, and I just kind of told them, no, we're not going to do that. I'm not going to entertain them just messing around here, hitting some farms in front of them, just being disrespectful to farming them right in front of them, kind of challenging them to see what they're going to do, if anything. Well, let me just scoot ahead a little. I just kind of think I'm messing around with farms here and stuff for a while, so I don't think a whole lot's going to happen at the moment. probably should have gone into the mine. I feel like I put everything on hold during kill events, and I like skip all the other things I should be doing, like just the daily activities and tasks and stuff. It's like such an inconvenience because I'm just focusing on the event and stuff, and so it's kind of entertaining that I just always put everything else on the back burner so much. But anyway, you can see we're just burning their farms in front of them, kind of like making it clear, like we know he's not bubble, but we're not going to mess around and try and waste a bunch of troops in a risky way that could cost us. So one other thing I will say too, he's got the, if I go to a city here, eventually you can see he's got the fog of war type thing on, which basically hides your city from being scouted. Just a note with that too, since I just saw it up here, I almost never, or basically never, use fog of war, and that's because I don't think that it gives you an advantage to hide what's in your city as much as you showing people what you want them to see, if that makes sense. And so some people, they can't hide troops really, and they've got way too many troops to even hide and stuff, so it's harder to do that. But I like to not ever really, and like you'll see in pretty much all my videos, I never use fog of war, because if they're trying to scout me, I love to do different things where I can hide or move or manipulate troops to show them whatever I want them to see is in my city, instead of just being fog of war and they have no idea what they're hitting or getting themselves into. So I like to bait people, and definitely will pretend drop bubbles at times, for instance. These are just the actual rewards you can see for this event. So I'll go over the frenzy rewards later too, but these are the void phase awards you can see here as a reference. It goes all the way to 1,000. And then these are the week's event rewards here, so you can see pretty decent amount of gold there for the top couple players. Obviously the top player gets the cool little void decoration. Everyone else gets like the strongest, void commander things. So you can just see these are the rewards for reference if you want to see those in the future. I couldn't remember if I put those in the last video, so I want to just show them there, and then I'll show the rewards for the frenzy as well when I show that video. But this is, you can just, as a reminder, there's no offense, defense, attack, defense type stuff. It's just everybody gets the same points. These are the point breakdowns for everybody, whether you're attacking or defending. Obviously, you only get 50% if you're at like resource tiles. So if you're hitting people at resource tiles, you just, the battle itself, you get 50%. It's not like the attacker or the defender only gets 50. It's equal. I think you just basically get 50% for attacking there for everybody involved. It's just cut in half. But there's no penalty or reward for attacking versus defending in this. So, and then just showing, someone's got a lead here for the moment. I'm just hitting some farms. I'm just going to scoot ahead a little bit here, I think. I know that coming up here at the end about a minute, but I'm just messing around. They finally dropped the Kingsley gas bomb on me, which is the buff that I'll show you guys in a minute here, but basically it's decreasing the damage that my troops in my city would put out. And I forget who puts it on me, but it's actually a pretty big buff or debuff. So give it a second here, just killing some time. And it doesn't necessarily show up, like you can see it was there actually on my city there, right there, you can see it there, but I didn't, like, it doesn't really give me an alarm, so I didn't know at the time. So then I saw, and so this person, I don't even know what level that's at, because I barely have mine. Like, normally I never ever use it. It's just not something that's that useful. They did a good job putting it on me because it comes up because they try to attack me a lot in this event, as we'll see. It doesn't seem to help them much, unfortunately, but it's a huge amount. Like, reduces damage of my troops by 21.5%. That's a huge amount of damage reduction when you really think about it. So that's his breakthrough skill there, the one for Kingsley. So it lasts 12 hours. It's a pretty big amount. And it actually works on all the people reinforcing me too. So it's a pretty big debuffing that they put a damage debuff on all of our troops there. And I kind of feel like the fact they used it on me is like why they, as you'll see, are like determined to try to keep hitting me, even though it does not go well for them at any point in any of their attacks, and they get absolutely destroyed every single time. But they still keep trying, so and credit for them for being an aggressive group. They're a coordinated group too, especially some of the first attacks they hit super fast together, as we'll see. And they have this big debuff on me. And so when they put this on, and I see this like just a minute or two ago, I'm kind of immediately thinking like, okay, they're not going to waste this on me if they're not going to attack me. And I'm kind of watching them with my other account zoomed out a little bit to see the movement to look for, are they hiding their troops or they're getting ready to attack me? Because that's the big key, is if they're all going to unbubble, they're going to hide their troops, and you'll see that as a big key to know that it's time to get ready to be bubbled, or make sure everyone's ready to reinforce, because they're going to be coming in hot. So I was kind of ready for that. It wouldn't really have surprised me if that happened, and so I was basically ready. Just what we saw there briefly is you can't send T1 through T through like 4 basically, because more than 10% of your army, if you do that, then it will cause Sapablo's trying to scout me there. But I actually, if you look, I basically have all my fleets out, so he scouts and doesn't see like anything, which not exactly what I was intending, in the sense that it wasn't as controlled as I was looking for. But I like, again, to show them what I want them to see. And there I basically had most of my troops out. So they don't even know how many troops I have. They don't really know much of anything, because I had 5 fleets all basically gone when they scouted there. So it doesn't really tell them a whole lot of anything. Anyways, generally I like to do it where I, again, more controlled, kind of show them what I want them to see, to bait people in. They know I'm online anyways right now, but it's just they scouted. They at least saw some things, I think. You can see their fireworks and all that stuff, just kind of blah, blah, blah. Like, they're not going to attack Simoon, who's unbubbled, because he's just, they would get slaughtered. It would be way worse even than attacking me, because he's quite a bit stronger and has more troops and better troops even. But anyways, I'm still just kind of messing around, doing all this stuff here. But with my other account, I have it watching them this whole time very closely to look and see if they're starting to hide and shift troops. As soon as that starts to happen, I'm getting ready for them to attack. So I'm keeping an eye on that this whole time, basically, while I'm messing around in here, just kind of doing this stuff. So don't do this, what you see me doing here, not paying attention when you're unbubbled in this situation, unless you're watching elsewhere for them to be coming in hot and to attack. So yeah, anyways, nothing really happens for a little while here. Where am I at for timing? Let's go ahead, skip ahead here. I think around 58 minutes, if I remember correctly, they send kind of a pseudo attack from an alternate account that I think kind of try and distract, and then sometimes people see that, and then the red and the attack hides the fact that, and this is common, where like they'll send a fake attack basically, and then that red alarm will basically make you think, oh, it's just, it's nobody, you don't have to do anything, you don't have to worry. And then people aren't paying attention to reinforce right away, and the person's got that red bubble coming in from an alt city, so they don't see a whole group of people coming in hot. And that's a pretty common strategy. They'll kind of fake with that, and then people let down their guard. The person's not worried about that red alarm anymore, because they just think it's this, like, I think 24 that's going to attack me, like alternate account, and people aren't as ready to reinforce necessarily because of that. So I see this red bubble, and I actually was watching them with my other account, and I didn't see anyone attacking me, so I didn't know where it was even coming from, and so I bubbled right away just in case, right? So you can see this person was just trying to attack me, and they're also doing that because they wanted to use that attack to see my army size, because they still have no idea what my army looks like, right? So even though I am not using Fog of War, I've been moving my troops around so much that they have zero clue. They were trying to hit me there either as a distraction to the rest of my alliance, or to see how many troops I have to know what they're getting themselves into, so they know if it's a reasonable thing to do or not. Because if I have a huge stacked army, it's just not a very good idea for them. I didn't want them to see that. I also didn't know where they were attacking from, because I was watching all their cities with another account, and none of them were dropping bubbles and attacking. So I bubbled for kind of all of those reasons, just not to take a chance, because again, I'm trying to hopefully show you guys the right things to do and not the reckless things to do, and I also didn't want to give a chance for us to get absolutely smoked. So anyways, that's kind of, I'm just restarting. And with this, anytime you're setting a bubble, double check your bubble works, triple check it, log out, log back in, especially if you're going to be out for a while, to make sure your bubble works. So I set that bubble, and now I'm just looking again to make sure it's still active, that it's not like a faulty situation that happens to people all the time. Like, I swore I put up a bubble, and they log out, they don't check by logging back in to make sure, and next thing you know, their bubble was not up for whatever reason, or there was some issue and it didn't show up, and problems ensue. So anyways, I just wanted to, that's basically what I was doing right there. I don't think a lot's gonna happen again for a little while, so let me see here. I think I kind of look around, pour around. Yeah, so there's gonna be an attack coming up here in a sec. So yeah, I think this next one here, eventually gonna port and move. I'm down, I'm pretty sure, by where I was at before. I'm just kind of looking for areas to maybe port into. Killing some time. Oh, it already happened, looks like. Whoopsies, let me scoot back a little here. Guess I missed it. Well, let's see if I can find where it's at here. Let's see if I can figure out where. I should have probably written some of this down instead of trying to remember stuff, which is never great. There it was, yeah, so. All right, give me a minute here. Oh, so I'm still a little behind on that. Go back a little bit. Give him a second here. Hanging around, waiting, watching. I think my other account was back in our nation, actually looking around there at this point. So I was messing around, waiting for something to happen. And Moravier, one of our players, is like farming them basically in the general area, and you can see him there. He's like battling farming and stuff like that. So just keeping an eye. He's probably the only person. I don't know if this was even like a trap we had really planned on necessarily, but it kind of just worked out that way. So, and this will be a good example to contrast to a little while later when I'm defending actually. And kind of one of the last bits of footage that I have from this series of things, when you can kind of compare and contrast, like the importance of, again, like with Pablo, for instance, being the one to actually be holding the troops and attacking his city, how that would go versus compared to attacking and hitting a weaker city. And so you're going to kind of see with like Moravier defending and how that looks, and then we can contrast that, compare that to when they try like attack me, for instance, and they'll do that quite a few times. So. Anyways, bear with me here as I'm just chilling, hanging out. Like and subscribe, guys, by the way, for all this great quality content. If you haven't subscribed already, if you haven't liked it already, do that. Comment, questions, comments, concerns, compliments, whatever it may be. Maybe we'll hold off on that until a minute or two from now when we actually get into a couple of the big attacks that you're going to see before the end here. And so just we're on this, so like there's different types of traps you can do, and they're kind of doing like traps, and so you can see now battling, right? Moravier, he's getting hit by somebody, and ideally we want to do a bubble trap where he bubbles right when they're starting to hit, so it limits, especially if you're weaker, you want to limit the number of people that you're going to let attack your city while we're reinforcing, because if we reinforce with 10 or 15 people but we don't ever bubble and they hit with 35 people, disaster ensues, and that's kind of what you see here. And you can see, I'm just saying that's when we want to hit, like if we're gonna hit Pablo, that's when we want to do it when he's like hitting with his full fleet and stuck in the city. That's when we would want to do a coordinated attack against him if we're gonna do one at some point, and not when he's got all of his troops and his tank and planes in the city. And so you can actually see, you know, we got 10 reinforcements and he still didn't bubble yet. So this is like the whole bubble trap thing that I was talking about, where you need to bubble, and so because they can just pile on like more and more attacks, and they see that's kind of what's gonna happen here. Like they're hitting, unfortunately, like taking all the time in the world because we never bubble. And so this is supposed to be a bubble trap, if anything, and it's not. It turns into literally just us getting smacked. And he's like, holy crap. And I think he said, like, he finally bubbled now. He said, like, you know, the amount of people attacking and everything that happened, I think it turned into like a situation where, unfortunately, he didn't get the chance to bubble because he dropped. And you can see like we had a reinforcement late there. They already had 16. We were clearly losing. So we were clearly losing. And then somebody else kind of tried to reinforce at the end. And that's not ideal. So yeah, I said I couldn't bubble. Yeah, so iPhone 11. But anyway, so that's not a bubble trap because we didn't actually bubble when we were supposed to. But let me go to this. I want to say it's maybe this one here. Yeah. See if it works here. Come on. So just so you can see quick, the report, like they had 16, we had 11, they had 5.2-ish mil, we had about 4.3 mil people. And so they clearly had the numbers advantage, the size advantage, and then the fact that we, unfortunately, his account dropped or whatever, and his account crashed, and so he had to log back in and couldn't bubble. Like, they just were able to pile on more and more at the end. And that being said, they did lose almost a mil. They lost like 925 permanently, so that's pretty costly. But the most important thing to note here is they actually won pretty soundly in the points, right? So they killed over 2 million, and we only killed about 1.6 million. And you can see the amount we lost compared to them. You know, they lost about a 2/3 of what we lost, basically. So they definitely made up some points on that one. And a big part of that is, unfortunately, the person who is defending has a lot of the troops, right? And so if they're a weaker person, they're hit by Pablo, who's there by himself for a while. Person is very strong. He's hitting a lot of people, and it's pretty painful for us in the beginning of this one here. And then you see I get in there a little late, too. Pyramid Head hit, which is Surveyor. But I think this might have been the fight, if I'm remembering correctly, where I think he just rushed troops in, and I don't think he had, I think it was all front row for him. I don't think Surveyor even had his attack troops. So nice of him to send all front row to help slow them down for sure, but he didn't even have his main fleet, I think, when he rushed in ready. And so it was just all like whatever is assigned, and that was going to be all like front row for him, if I'm not mistaken, basically. And then I'm pretty sure also that I think maybe Simoon wasn't available for this one, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm trying to remember. So, but unfortunately, and then this is those late attacks that I was talking about, where like, you know, we're kind of done for already. Like, we're basically like to just our back rows here, and you see two more people kind of send in late, and their troops literally just hit their little plane robot and absorb that damage, don't actually kill anything, and so they're basically just like free kills for them. And so reinforcing late in a winning fight, like you saw them do, actually help tip them over the edge to win. Reinforcing late in a fight, unfortunately, and so these are just the, go back to team so you can see this. So, you know, I think I killed about 260k, you know, had about 180k wounded. And if you're looking like Morvair, who's the person defending, he only had, you know, not even 40k and lost 350k almost. So, you know, a weaker person setting a trap, that's totally fine to do, but just understand you really don't want the person that's weak like that to have too many troops there, because those unfortunately are going to get hit throughout the fight and be much easier targets. And it's also for that person a lot more costly even to have to try to heal all those troops, and they don't really get that many kills out of even, so it's not beneficial for them either. So you really don't want a weaker person to have too many troops in the city defending, because it's not helping them and it's not helping anybody really. So you want them to have like maybe a fleet, and that happens later. So you can see some of their people, you know, Zara breaking even basically. Him, you can see just like he's, you know, in the 500 range for his, you know, HPA and LRA and stuff, and so that's not ideal against some of these stronger players and stuff. So, and so you can see, I think, yes, Simoon was not there at this point, which probably is a big part of the reason that didn't go well for us, because, you know, he's one of our strongest people. So I don't want to show their stats, just out of respect for the other nation and stuff. So I skip ahead of that. Don't want to show their stats, but they got a lot of kills and stuff. So, and they did a great job attacking us, and that's what happens when, again, you have a weaker person, you know, defending with more troops, and we also were missing basically our strongest person too, so it didn't go great there. And that'll happen sometimes. It's certainly not the end of the world. So, all right, let me get back into. Gosh, we're speeding along here now a little bit, so. I want to say just a brief word here. I'm pretty sure right around this time, he's still out farming there, so gotta give him credit for being persistent. So, but so this is actually this person is the third, the Elysium. That's our old alliance that we brought over. That's now some of the less active people, and you can see he's got all these scouts that he's sending out or that are returning. So too many of these to be hiding all of his troops for how much BP he has. So I can tell you just looking at this picture, even like this dude's got 4, scouts going in and out. That means he's maybe hiding 2 fleets, and he's got way more troops than he can hide there based on his BP relative to what he can actually as a 32 hide. So we all knew this dude, like so many people, unfortunately, is just not doing, even it's a year and a half in this game, this dude's not hiding his troops appropriately, and it's just going to be an easy sitting target. And so I think all of us that put in time, effort, hundreds of K gold and all that stuff, like we're pretty annoyed by this and stuff. And you can see he's actually got 1 fleet returning there, so I think he even waits for like one, and he's attacking some of these things to farm them, but he's clearly also then not just scouting but attacking there with fleets that he's letting return, and he's not hiding these troops at all. So, and he's doing it right in front of these active alliances of people, where it's just kind of like he's just waiting to get attacked and get smacked, because he doesn't have the rest of his alliance backing him. They don't have any traps planned or anything like that, and he's not very strong. And so just a bad setup for like doing everything we try and tell people not to do, and we've been telling people not to do, and they just don't want to listen. Like, and it's getting frustrating. And I think because we're more competitive now overall with 2 active groups merged together, we have less patience, I think, for this. And I'll talk about kind of plundering toward the end of this video. It's a long video already, my god, but so maybe I'll have to wait. But basically we're just like kind of over it, and we're not going to let them mess around. So Simoon, you can see he's actually attacking him, which whatever. So he attacks him, and then it's not 3 reinforcements. These are just his own troops returning, because he's not hiding any of his troops. So he's just giving up easy points to what would be the enemy. So Simoon just, I think, had enough, and is like, I don't blame him. Normally, honestly, I'm the one that has to purge everybody. I don't mind being the bad guy on that at all, but I think Simoon's so nice that I think you could tell how fed up is the fact that he did this, because normally that's not something he probably would do, because he's just a really nice dude, but he's over it too. So I don't know, almost adding insult to injury. I just told him to hide your troops. So, but I mean, we're all just fed up with it. Like, this happens so much. You'll see either at the end of this video, or I'm probably going to break up the video and show all the strategy and stuff for Frenzy in a separate one, because this is just going way too long. But I'll include all the purging in there, and you'll see, I mean, I purged like 10, 15 million people. So you can see right here, like, dude was not hiding his troops, lost 220K permanently, but look at this. Dude's got 300 to 400. Like, that's not acceptable. Like 400 for your LRA and 350, and you're not hiding your troops. Like, you're just sitting duck. Like, you're easy points for the enemy. Like, if you're gonna farm, you have to do it in a responsible way and hide your troops. And this dude's like, not. People just don't do that. They don't know, and they don't care. Like, it's frustrating. So I think we're all over it, and we're just like, yeah, really, we're not gonna waste time with people who can't follow the simplest of rules and common courtesy, because they're being selfish and prioritizing their own, resources there. They don't care about the nation and the points they're going to give up and stuff like that. And this happens all the time. So it is what it is. I thought that was interesting to show, though, just because it's kind of a testament to how fed up everyone is with just people not being even remotely disciplined. So yeah, that's whatever. Okay, so let's see if anything else happens here. I'm just kind of waiting. Like I said, I probably should have tried to remember a little more closely. Oh yeah, so here you can see they attack again. But they're attacking like that. This is that city they try to attack me with. That would be like essentially like a distraction, basically. But then what they'll do a lot of times is that just use that to see what troops are actually there, and then they'll speed in after that, or they are again using it as like a distraction here to then get people not to worry before they speed in their actual attacks and everything like that. So And then so you can see actually here they're actually attacking. So I see that and I join. But this time we actually did bubble a little bit better, I think. So yeah. And I just speed in there, join the party. And it does not go well for them here. I'm just doing some healing there. Always healing. Defense report, so you can see here in this one. Again, this time we bubbled at least. But I think similar to the last time, they still hit us with they hit stronger players, and we had weaker players with too many troops. And so we need to adjust our strategy a little bit because we're giving up points now is what matters. I mean, sure, we didn't lose very much. They lost almost 500k troops permanently, but what again really matters is these scores up here with like how many points you're extrapolating from that. And they killed about 1.3 million to us killing like 900,000 only. And so again, those points are going to add up, and they're going to close the gap if we continue this. And so this is the second time we've kind of hit a weaker person who again bubbled this time. That didn't crash on them, but that's still too many points that we're giving up here to narrow the gap too much. And I got there kind of late there, so you can see the people that we had reinforcing. So Simon got in on this one at least, which is good because again he kills a lot of troops. That makes a big difference. I don't think Pyramid Head unfortunately on this one got to join. So anyways, and again I don't want to show their stats, so I'm just going to skip ahead there a little bit. But yeah, so you've seen twice in a row now that whether it be bubble trap or not bubble trap on time with weaker people with more troops, it's giving up points and it's a problem, and that's just not what we want to do. So let me scoot ahead a little here. So I said I was gonna do my thing here and be bait, even though, and then there was a little bit of discussion here about whether or not they think that they would actually be willing to even hit me as bait. And I think the fact that they put that huge 21% debuff on me, I mean, I think they were trying to come and hit me earlier, and I avoided it because I was skittish and a pansy, and for better or worse, I bubbled up. So yeah, so that's, I don't have, we're talking about Medicini, so actually like his breakthrough skill and the damage for your city troops that it provides, and using him assigned versus the two that I have assigned. And actually I'm going to be doing some testing on this with Simoon, I think, here coming up pretty soon. I'm going to let him smack my city and kind of check the differences with that. So we'll see what that shows. I don't even have mine also. The breakthrough is only at like, I think 12 or 14 or something like that. I'm 13 here, so it's probably just not quite enough. So I haven't tested that, so I just leave. And the main thing is having Brave Star, because Brave Star gives you a huge boost to your hospital wounded capacity. So that's really important. And then he also auto heals a huge amount of troops, and you're going to see that coming up here pretty soon. So just the other thing to note is I here switch them to join so your default, your zombies will not defend, but I change it to have them ready to fight. So this is just another little strategy change. So I'm kind of getting ready for them to actually attack me, most likely. People are ready to defend if needed, and I'm like kind of going all in on this one now, ready to fight with like my zombies and stuff, even kind of ready. And they're going to participate in this first one just so you can see that, and then they're definitely going to hit. So we'll go over that in a second. So it should be coming fairly soon here. And they actually, it's interesting, I was watching them with my other account right now while I did this to keep close eye on them, and I actually noticed all of them dropping bubbles and charging forward to hit my city from that view before I even saw the red like warning alarm, because there's so much lag just from I think so many people attacking. So it was kind of interesting to see how that worked out. So but yeah, so I'm just kind of making sure I have everything ready, which is basically whether you want your zombies to attack or not, the troops you have in your city or not. And you can see here they come, like a lot of them, the red there. And so as soon as they hit, I bubbled. Like as soon as I saw one hit kind of on the periphery there, I was bubbling. And I was posting like sharing my city so everyone can see like they're coming in. And they're pretty fast. Like it's interesting, like I already bubbled, but you can see like all these people still hitting. So I think that's just like the lag of it. Like, like I was clearly bubbled, and yet somehow at least in viewing, but somehow like 5 other people got in there, and I think that's just kind of the lag issues you see when like a lot of people are attacking. And I just healed my like I already have Brave Star on, so but yeah, that's the first thing I had done. Make sure that my hospital is full, and make sure it's fully open, not full of troops, obviously. So make sure my biochemical hospital and my regular hospital are all completely full, because they came in hot with a lot of troops there on me, and I don't want to have any actual losses from my hospital capacity. And it's like that's quite fast, and that's over now. So yeah. So you can see. Let me just see if I can. I don't know why it does that. Kind of annoying. All right, so blah 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 blah. Let's see here. I just wanna. I'm just saying that I always have Brave Star on for that, which I do. Do. So it's over already. I'll show the report of it, but so just so you can see, this is 407,000 wounded. And you'll see that in the actual report, but 407,000 were wounded, and that's 14 days of healing. And the important thing to remember is, so I actually get about 10% healing speed up from the officers I have assigned with like Brave Star and healing speed increase. But then our healing speed increase from the Alliance activated skill increases my healing speed by 40%. So basically I have a 50% speed up increase, and it's still basically almost a full 14 days. So this really would be essentially 21 days roughly if I didn't have that Alliance skill active. So like this hit with the 407k and my troops wounded was realistically like 2 to 3 weeks worth of heal time. So that's pretty significant. And you'll see in the report that I show you that Brave Star helps a lot. So I still have 407k wounded right here, but anyways, they're showing the reports now and stuff, so we'll look at it. And so this is kind of one of those like pretty epic reports. That's kind of nice to see. I mean, I'll go through it in a second, but we basically had the same number of troops, even though they had 23 people versus 15 of us reinforcing. But if you just look at the most important thing here, like we had 7 million, in losses worth of power loss there. Again, equating that to just points. But so we had 718,000 total wounded troops, and they had 3.45 million, right? So we not only killed over 2 million troops permanently, they had about another 1.4 million wounded. So this is a huge, and you can just see, I mean, the power loss, it's a huge difference. This is a 5x roughly difference. And that's mostly because just like if we'd hit Pablo, they're hitting me with 2.6-ish million troops, and all that being at like, the 1200 range for like LRA and melee HP and stuff, where all my troops and everything, all my officers are active. I have this huge buffer, and I have this huge front row that they just like cannot even get close to getting through. And so that all makes a huge difference, whereas them hitting a lot of troops of weaker players and then us stronger people reinforcing with just a handful of troops here and there makes a big difference. So just contrasting and comparing this to those 2 attacks before, where we were losing those fights in the point battle and power loss battle, and now this we 5x them. So, and if you just look here, this post-war rescue, so the Brave Star, I have it maxed the breakthrough skill at 24.5%. So that means that he healed 132k instantly. So those troops just returned to my city. I don't have to heal them. So instead of having basically 500 and let me just think here, what would it be? So I had 407k wounded instead of having and 132k healed. So basically I would have had 540,000 wounded instead I only had 407,000 wounded. My hospital capacity, just for the record, so with him active, with Brave Star active, because of the increased hospital capacity is probably one of his skills, I can hold a little like over 550,000. So I was still under that regardless, under that 550,000. Even if you didn't have this breakthrough skill active, it was like 540k. So it would have been close though, for sure. So it would have been getting into my biochemical hospital. So anyways, you can see pretty brutal. And again, I had the zombies active too, which is nice, just because as you'll see in the report, that gives kind of a nice little extra to it. So let me pause this here and just go into the actual report so you guys can see that. Let's see which one it is here. I think it's this last one. Yeah. So even with them, again, putting this 21.5% damage debuff on me, and like if you look, they're hitting pretty fast. Like they're just like, within the first 10 seconds, they've got 17 people there, right? 18 people. And I could have swore I hold faster, but people just kept coming through, it feels like through the bubble, but I'm guessing that's just kind of the lag of like showing them joining, even though I was bubbled. But if you look here, like they're getting annihilated. Like they're not even close to getting through my front row. And with the reinforcements I have coming into, I mean, we got a couple 100,000 front row still left. So like there was no way. And then they start to retreat, and it's just, I mean, there's nothing they can do. Like I have so much front row to get through that can really hold up for a while, which is a huge advantage, because that way, even if reinforcements take some time, they're not really eating much until they can actually get through my front row, which they really just can't. They can't do, honestly. So, and then you can just see here, I mean, for me, it worked out pretty well. Like I had, 200 and 2.6 million there, and I killed about 1.4 million. So I was able to kind of kill quite a lot of the troops myself, which obviously helps my score and stuff, which is great. But also, the most important thing, we easily smoked them with the amount of points we got out of this one, and there were 0 losses. That's another nice thing, just with a stronger person, a lot of front row, and then good reinforcements from a really active, good, strong alliance of people joining. You were pretty easily able to avoid any losses at all, and got a pretty huge score boost here. Granted, I do have a lot of hospital time to kind of heal my troops and all, but it's fine. And then I think I'll probably just kind of scroll down and show you. But so you can see, yeah, here I just want to show, like with the zombies, they killed well over, about 300,000 point. Like that's another 300,000 kills that the zombies got there. So having all them added to this is not a bad idea, because I didn't exceed my hospital limit still, and they add definitely some more kills for me. And zombies are low key super strong. They are like snipers in that they have a single target attack almost. They don't do like that like area of effect damage, or they do like splash damage, whatever you want to call it. But they have a super high single target damage, more than any other troops. So that's why I put them in there, because I was just, even if I lost some troops a little bit there, I wanted to get as many kills as possible. And so I was just showing that. To contrast later, I'll hide them, and you can see there's just a little bit of a difference. Plus, they put this big damage debuff on all of us, so I was just adding them into the fray to make sure that we extra add some more damage back to negate that. So, and you can see I didn't lose anything. I mean, they didn't even kill my like T1, nothing there, so which is great. So, and defending, I've got like 1325, 1152, but again, my damage stats are probably some of the strongest. Like my increased damage to melee, decreased damage from that my melee take, all those things are pretty high relative to most other people. So you can see the people that joined, some people joining kind of late, so not getting a whole lot. And you can see like when people join late and they have like almost no kills and they have a couple losses, that's because they got there right at kind of the end and stuff. So I don't want to show you guys this though, because I don't want you to see their stats. Again, I don't want to, just out of respect, I don't know, people may not like that. So I don't want to show that. Let me just get back out. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. I just want to show one more time so you guys can kind of see. They hit fast, so they did a good job. Kudos to them for how fast they hit, because if you look, I mean, within 8 seconds, 9 seconds, 10 seconds, they got 17 plus people there. That's a lot already. But if you look, I still have at that 12-second marker, so starts at 3 seconds realistically. So it's been about 10 seconds of actual fighting. And within the first 10 seconds, all your officer stats are kind of like synergizing and hitting and stuff like that. So you're dealing a lot of the damage you're going to deal. If you look there, like they're already hurting. They have about 15k front row left only total, which is not great. And I mean, like if you look here, like there's 200 plus k easy front row. Like they're not gonna. You can tell right from here at this point they stand absolutely no chance unless some sort of a miracle happens with how the fight's been going so far. With the amount of back row we also have, I mean they have a lot too back here, but they're gonna just get eaten because these front row are not gonna last much longer at all, and you'll see that happen. So. Like their front row already gone. Like by about 13 seconds into the actual fighting, they had no front row left at all. They were completely gone. And now we're just kind of like feasting our way through and killing all their back row pretty rapidly. And then they're going to start to have to retreat and save what they can. But it's completely over at that point. Like if there's one take home from this, it's don't sleep on having a massive amount of front row and melee. If you're going to defend, you need that, because you need to be able to hold up against a lot of enemies like them, super coordinated, coming in hot, hitting hard. Like you have to be able to hold up against that. And so you need to have really strong front row if you're going to defend against this type of savage attack from these pretty coordinated group. So anyways, let me get back in here and kind of finish this out. These videos are almost freaking long. So anyways, I think I've kind of covered most of the important stuff from the actual initial coverage here. I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot. We just kind of talk about blah, blah, the fighting and all that good stuff. Let me get back to... Yeah, I'm just saying I'll open again, blah, blah. Saying they lost pretty bad. I don't think they're going to come again and stuff, and I kind of probably tend to agree and stuff, so... I think let me just scoot ahead here. Maybe to the end, I think. So yeah, I'm attacking. So just fast forward to the end of this video here, and then I'll show some other stuff. One of their scouting, JPN, who's our second strongest alliance, they're basically scouting them, and that person dropped their bubble. So I'm actually just, I didn't even bother to scout. I'm just attacking. I'm slow marching toward them to kill them, because honestly, again, this person, first of all, has dropped bubbles multiple times before, or not bubble before events, so that's not new. But I'm also like, the kills are going to happen whether it's us doing it or them. Like, they're going to hit if it's not us. So I'd rather just kill them and not give the enemy the points. But I also don't like to speed, because I don't want to waste speed ups, first of all. But I also don't like to speed in case they're actually going to get online and bubble in time. But you'll see that actually hurts, because I'm slow marching and it takes me like a minute or something to get there. And so one of the enemies, and it ends up being Pablo, who's strong too, gets in there and absolutely wrecks them before I get there. But then Samoon uses that as a chance to hit, and you can see he actually hits. Unfortunately, all that's there is zombies. So Pablo, credit to Pablo, first of all, for hitting fast and killing all those troops before I could get there. That was smart. He also, if you're looking, you can see these little guys here. He literally got all of his fleets out, and so that was really smart. He was able to attack but also hide all of his other troops. But for him, he made a mistake and was not hiding his zombies, so he did give up about 300,000 points from killing the zombies. So if he had hidden those and not had them participating, then he would have had no troops there, and it would have been much better even than what it was. And I just, yeah, you can see I already hit, and then she tries to hit too, basically, but there's not much left. So this is kind of just an example of what will happen pretty commonly when we see people drop bubbles, is we will hit them, because if we don't, the enemy's going to and give a lot of points to the enemy, which is unfortunately what happened here, because I didn't speed attack, so I probably should have sped up and prevented that instead of giving them points. Because unfortunately, you'll see here, like, you know, there were 210,000 troops there, which means that, like, let's say it was probably like 500k, I'm going to just guess, were there, and then this was the remains of that 500k that Pablo didn't kill, that I then killed, and then there's still 50k left that are also get killed by the next Lily or whoever that attacker was. So basically, you got to purge is the moral of the story. It's important to do that. If you don't, the enemy's going to kill him anyways, and you saw a great example of that in the beginning of this fight, where I smoked somebody who for 1.6 million kills or whatever, because they didn't purge that person. And you see we didn't purge the person here who dropped a bubble fast enough, and it gave up kills. So something worth noting. Just another little thing, I'm going to go through some more reports here of the actual attacks after this is done, just the individual reports of what happened for some strategy stuff. The one last thing I wanted to mention, when you're hiding troops, and there's different ways of doing that, you know, marching them to, again, rallies at ruins, reinforcing other cities that are bubbled, marching them across the map. One thing you'll see people do is they'll send attacks to resource plots, like across the black dirt in the middle, like a long ways, and that way it kind of keeps the troops out of the city. It can hide them too, theoretically, but you really actually never want to let them land. And I'm going to show you guys. I think that's the end of the useful video basically there. So I have 3 attacks here. Don't have the I just have the reports. I didn't want to actually go through the videos and have to like cross out the person's name that made this mistake for them. But basically, they had somebody who sent a bunch of people these 3 attacks here. So let's go to this one first. So somebody basically sent a bunch of fleets to random mines and forgot about it, I'm assuming, and got busy or distracted with their life. You never want to let if you're marching long marches to hide troops at resource plots, you never want to actually let them get there for a number of reasons. One of them is because if they beat you to that, they can see you marching across the map, right? Like if you look on a map, you can see somebody marching to wherever they're going, and so they'll know where you're going. They'll know the resource plot, and if they are quick about it, they can speed troops there and beat you there, and then it's actually just like, so let me show you. I think I have one here I saved specifically for this in preparation here. Favorite ones here. There's a bunch from our most recent fighting battles in Frenzy, which I'll go through. So just this random. So this is literally just me going to a mine, and I just went to a gold mine, and somebody attacked it from one of their alliances, and because I was there, I was defending, and so then it's like he's attacking, and he lost half of his army. He lost 42k troops, right? So he was just trying to attack the mine that I was at, and I just have, I'm just minding my own business, haha, with tanks there. And you can see, because I was there first, I'm defending, and so he's actually losing a lot of troops permanently, and whereas the ones I have that get attacked are just wounded and they don't actually go toward lost troops. And so somebody could speed a army or multiple armies to beat the person marching there, and if they're not paying attention, they would basically then be attacking somebody defending the mines, and they could in void lose a ton of troops, right? So like this was just a random occurrence that person lost 42k troops, but you can imagine if somebody's sending 300-400k, they could lose huge amounts of those to somebody who got there first and is defending. So I just wanted you guys to see that. And then you can see, so Simoon just, I think, barely beat me in this one in the kill event, and then definitely won the overall event too for that void. And this is one of the big things that he was able to do with the rest of the alliance, finding this person who sent multiple attacks out and forgot about them, and they actually went to the mines, and so he was able to kill, or wound here 262k roughly, and not lose a whole lot. And then this one, as his hospital fills up, he actually kills 50k and wounds another 215k. So another really costly hit. That's, even though you're getting 50% of the points because it's at a resource mine, it's still a pretty big hit. And then the final one there, he's able to kill another 195k. So he's killing like 250k roughly permanently, and then wounding a whole bunch more to get a lot of points. And so that's why I would not recommend sending troops across the mines and letting them actually get to the mines. That's a bad thing to do for a number of reasons. From a standpoint of again, trying to be smart about not losing troops and hiding them in the most responsible ways. And so the last thing I'm just going to go over quickly, I guess, because good God, this is going so long, is just some of the individual attacks that happen that are good to see that happened after. So like for instance, let me pause this here. So this is another attack they did on us, as you can see here. And so I think this one, I'm gonna say, we'll go through it, but it was an attack on one of our reinforced cities, and we obviously were able to get a lot of reinforcements in there right away, and there's pretty even total troops, even though again they have quite a few more attackers. And so actually, sorry, let me get to it. This is my report. Give me 1 second here. Here we go. This is the one that I'm talking about. So they Pablo attacks here, and unfortunately for us, this is another example of where we have, compared to what I just showed you at the beginning, where I was defending at the beginning of this, and we have a big 5x gain. They basically have a 5x gain on this one, but he's attacking by himself even literally, but because he hit somebody who is, again, another weaker person defending, and there's not some of our stronger people there, or we get there later, it's a pretty brutal attack for us. So I don't think Simoon was in here, Severia and I were later, and he is attacking one of our weaker players, and so he gets a lot more points in this particular battle because of that. So I'm actually just going to skip ahead, I think, because there's just like this so many minutes in, and I've already made this point multiple times about the importance of who you have actually defending. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. So this is another one. This is like 7-on-7 basically attack. And this is, they attacked my city here. And so you can see that, again, we basically got double the points compared to them. And this one is a little bit interesting, I think, and one I wanted to just reference because, so I, again, was hiding a lot of my fleet out, and they scouted, and so I thought they were probably going to attack, and I thought this would be a good chance to then show kind of bringing troops and recalling my troops back. And so I had one fleet out, and they had a city that we had hit a couple times, and they stopped reinforcing it. And I figured that if I hit it, there was a good chance with this that they were going to try to hit me instead of reinforcing it again because of the way they were kind of active, but they were not reinforcing it anymore. And so the mistake they had made was that when I hit it, there were so few troops that it didn't really hold me there long. And so I was able to pull back right away and get back to my city. And that's kind of what you're going to see in this battle here, I think, is that, unfortunately, even though they had the right idea with when I send my Titans plane and fleet out to attack, they attack me. I was able to speed back so fast because there was no real resistance there that I didn't have to even wait the 10 seconds before I could retreat. I was just able to come back right away. And so it was very little time that I was actually away. And you'll actually see my Titans, I think, in this one get smacked and killed anyways. But then reinforcements are there quickly, and I didn't even have to bubble, honestly, because they just didn't send very many people. And we basically doubled their score with this. Even though they had the right strategy, the execution just didn't really work out for them as well as I think they probably would have liked. So, and again, I actually had Brave Star, and he helped heal 151,000, so pretty big deal. So I'm just showing, I'm not going to show the stats and stuff, but just so you can see the actual people who are involved in this, and then show you guys. So I think I had 2.1k there, killed about 550,000, but I had a lot wounded in this one. And that's because my Titans and plane took a smacking, so someone got in there and helped me out, obviously, which makes a big difference, as it always does. And so, getting to the fight here, you're going to see that I have no time, like right in the beginning, you'll notice I just have like a little green plane, and then I'm able to thankfully get back right away, and so it doesn't cost me too much because they, again, did not hold me for at least the 10 seconds there by putting enough troops there for me to actually have to be stalled at all. And then you can see, so basically like 3 seconds into the fight, I basically have my main fleet come back. And that's important. And I got my zombies there too over on the side, you can't see. But then they actually get smacked again and die, and I'm about 4 to 5 seconds before I get a bunch of reinforcements to then kind of save my butt by having, Titans and planes there to help keep me from dying. So they had the right idea with trying to speed attack me when I sent troops out, but I was able to get back in time, and then having a great alliance that's all ready to, they were able to get their reinforcements to me. And this is just kind of a repeat of it again. So you can see about 3 to 4 seconds in, after it actually starts, I get my troops back. They last for a little while, but then they take a smack from, those are the breakthrough skills of officers, and then Titans smacking with their skills basically annihilate them. And then again, at 4 or 5 seconds without Titans in play until the reinforcements get back in there for me and help to kind of save me. And so you can see they lost about 550,000 permanently, and we didn't lose any troops at all again. So, and this one was even bigger, with Brave Star actually taking 151k of my wounded and healing them automatically. And if he hadn't done that, I actually would have just started to exceed my hospital capacity limit, and maybe would have lost like a couple troops at least, although they would have been just like T1 through 3 anyways. So and we basically scored about double their points there. So that's another thing just worth seeing. So last couple things. This one, I just hit somebody right away. This was they basically, I think, dropped bubble, and I saw it happen in real time, basically, and so I just sped attacked them. I posted it, I think, to the Lions chat, but then I just sped attacked. I didn't wait around because, again, I didn't want to give them a chance to have reinforcements in the city and get caught. So, and I knew that they had most of their big players with the little orange bubbles over them, and they were not even in this nation at the time. So it was kind of just like I was ready to hit and attack and kind of see what was going to happen from there. So it's pretty much just a very fast battle. I can kind of skip ahead to, you can actually see the battle here quick, I think. I don't want to again show the stats the enemies, just out of respect for them. People might not like that if they actually watched it or something. So, but you can see this is just very, very fast. Like I sped attacked in, hit, and I'm burning through all the front row. He's got like 800k, but I burned through all of his front row really fast, and this fight is over by, 20 something seconds, basically 20 seconds. Again, they start at 3 seconds, so it's less than 20 seconds basically to do this. And then I waited a little while, like a couple minutes, and kept an eye on what was going on, and then slow marched in a second time, because their main hitters, their strongest people, were still in the other nation, at least showing those bubbles in the other nation. So I was kind of watching them with my other count while I'm slow marching here, so I know if I see them come back into the nation, I'm gonna get ready to recall or to retreat in case they try to attack. So again, it's not just about like getting kills, it's about getting kills and not losing too many troops. And so if I'm attacking, I'm always ready to bail out if I have to prevent getting smoked by a bunch of stronger people here. So there ends up being two of us. Dong Dong, who's one of our like main officer guys, one of our R4s who helps kind of coordinate everything, got involved in this one too and got some kills. And you'll see that in the actual fight here. But so this is the actual report here. And then I think we can just kind of go into it here. I'm just showing like the two of us. Kind of showing again what I sent here. A lot of front row. I'm always sending tons of front row, like probably 25 to 50%, kind of a wide range, but 25 to 50%ish, more like 40% probably are going to be front row melee. So important to really make sure you have a huge amount of front row. And then that way, even if they reinforce quite a bit, you're not losing your front row where they're getting easy kills at your damage dealing troops. And also that way, it gives you plenty of time to at least make it to that 10-second marker to reinforce if you need to. So let me speed ahead here a little bit to the actual fight here. So getting into the actual fight, just so I can show you guys. And you can see they have a fair amount of front row there, but I'm just burning through them. Like I still have 15k shredders, and they're burning away. And again, I have very high priority on damage to enemy melee, so I increase damage to enemy melee, and I just burn through them as fast as I possibly can. And you can see that happen. They reinforced again, but it doesn't matter. We just actually my Mel Titans die there, but they're already retreating because it's game over. Like we were through their front row. We have plenty of front row left between the tanks and the Hell King or shredders there, and we just completely annihilate them. So it worked out pretty well for us there. Again, to avoid some of the strong. I said one strong player there who has, I think, like pretty good LRA and melee HP and stuff, but again, with just kind of the overwhelming force that we had there, we're really able to burn through them and kill a lot of troops and probably get about a 3x point swing in our favor in that one, which is again always kind of what the priority is, as I think I've mentioned before a couple times. Last little one. So this is just one I think I ended up hitting somebody. This was like probably the only person I found that was in our nation who was like looking around to attack people and kept troops in the city. They were really, really good, really disciplined about whenever they dropped bubbles in our nation in particular to attack people, they always had the rest of their army and their troops hidden really well. So like you'd speed hit them as they were attacking somebody, and it'd be empty. It was just like a waste. This was the only person I found that wasn't hiding all their troops, and they were still definitely hiding some. Like they didn't have only like 600k or whatever, so they were hiding a lot, but they had probably at least 1 or 2 fleets worth kind of sitting at their actual city, and so I was able to kind of take advantage of that. So you can just skip ahead here to the actual, I don't want to show the stats and all. So yeah, so you can see there, I mean, I won pretty overwhelmingly. I think I lost like 1,000 troops or whatever, and I mean 30k to 2 point something million. That's, I'm gonna do the math, but obviously that's what you want to avoid. So that's why you should lesson learned, why you always should hide all of your troops and not just most of them like pretty much everybody else is doing. So just this is why you do that, right? He had almost no front row there at all either. Like I'm guessing he was hiding those, and so really bad that I literally just like one hit I was through the front row, and then it takes 5 seconds. I'm just immediately burning through the rest of them like there's no tomorrow. So a great example of why you need to have lots of front row and what happens if you don't. So I think he was hiding all those. That's why he didn't have any there, is because he was probably hiding those troops of all of them. So, and then the last couple just things to see here. So So I think this is going to be one of the last ones, if I'm not mistaken. This is basically the person here, Understorm. This is his city, but he only has one fleet there. So this is where you're going to see, even though it's a little bit of a weaker person who's not one of the strongest people, his city is bait, but it works out fine in this situation because he, instead of having like 700k or a lot of troops there, he only had one fleet there, and then we were very quick to get Simoon and people like him who are strong in there, where he's getting a ton of kills, So, and we can look even poor Understorm, like he only killed 11k and lost 135k, right? So same concept as the other ones, where the people who are weaker, unfortunately, their troops are going to get killed first, and they lose a lot of troops and have a lot of time in the hospital, and they don't even get that many kills out of it. So you don't really want to use your weaker people as bait too much, because it's not really helpful or fair to them, even like they're not going to benefit from it that much, right? So, but luckily he was smart about not having too many troops there, and then we got reinforcements in there right away, which was good. So even though it was like 6-on-6 and it was similar to those other ones where we had a weaker person kind of as the bait, I guess, it didn't really cost us because we did it in a little bit more of an effective way. And that's why I want to show this one is, if you're using somebody who's a little lower stat wise and stuff like that, you can still do it in a way that's beneficial. Oopsies, hold up. Sorry, I don't want to show their stats. So those are ours. Let me see what I need to go to. Let's go maybe here. Yeah, so I'm kind of late to the party there, 13 seconds. But you can see there, they almost get him there, where they basically have no troops, just Titans left, and then Simoon's people get in there last minute. And then that kind of changes things. And then I'm able to get troops in there too, eventually, messing around, being late. And then shortly after, they start to retreat. So they almost kind of got through and killed just the first little group. But luckily we were able to just get troops in time and then kind of turn the whole tide of things pretty significantly in our favor there, which was good. So it ended up being pretty close, I think, score-wise. Let's just go back here a second. Let me pause it so you can see. Yeah, so here, we had about 2 million versus 2 million. They lost about 480k permanently, and we actually probably had a 2.5x bonus points. Like we scored, probably at least twice as many, if not 3 times as many points as they did, based on this report, I would guess, because of our strong people getting there right away and the bait not having as many troops. I think that's the biggest difference. Since you can see, like, he didn't have any troops there, but Simoon basically did, and even though he's again like 600s, 400s, little lower on the stat totals, the stronger people like Simoon got in there right away and didn't lose much of anything and just killed tons of troops. So that's really beneficial for our score there. And so I just wanted to show you can do it right with lower level troops. If executed properly, it can still work as bait for the bubble trap there. And then the last one, I think I have one more maybe here. Let's see here. Yeah, so I think this is my very last one, and I am defending on this one. And this is the one, I think, where they scouted me. I had a bunch of troops out and about, so they didn't, again, know what I really had in my city and try to speed attack me. And I thought this would be a good chance to use my recall all skill from the commander skills to show what that looks like in the fight. And so you guys can see that. You'll see, I had a lot of troops still here, 2.3 plus mil or whatever. And I did a decent enough job of, I guess, killing troops. And again, there were no losses, as you'll see in this. One mistake you might see here and might notice if you think of it, I didn't have zombies in there. So not only did my zombies, they were hidden. I wasn't having them participate in the fight, but I also, which is fine, sometimes this is kind of risky having troops out. You don't know what you're going to get coming at you and stuff. The mistake I made, though, was I didn't have any in any of my fleets that were out. I should have had some, so that way when I recall, I'm getting zombies into the fight from that. And I did that in the early one. I just didn't do that here. It was a mistake on my part. So ending poorly with lack of focus there, not having, the little things matter. So I should have had some zombies there to get more kills. Regardless, they still lost about 600k. So again, they're losing a lot throughout this. They really kept going on. Kudos to them for trying. But luckily, because we did things right and adjusted our strategy, we were actually able to widen the gap throughout this fight, and that, I think, paid off quite a bit, actually. So I was pretty happy about that. I guess I can probably just show. These are kind of showed the report and the troops that I had there available. Let me just skip ahead. I don't want to show anything that again from the other team's stats. So I'll just show you the ending on this one, I guess, here. So again, I still have a lot of front row there, like 50 something K shredders or Hell King and 30K tanks. And then I get in, you can see right there, like all those reinforcements were me. So I don't know if you noticed that. I'm just gonna scoot back a little bit here. So I join, and then you can see I got 3 fleets that all return back. And then other people are reinforcing me too. So a lot of this was just actually me reinforcing myself by pulling my troops back to the city, and then having a little bit of reinforcements. And honestly, they didn't. This was kind of late in the fight. I think they lost a little bit of their steam coming in there, and so even though they had a couple strong people hitting still, I didn't really have to like bubble or anything because they just didn't have the numbers there compared to what I still had available to kind of protect. And so that's what you're seeing there. So I killed 750K and lost, had 95K wounded, so not too shabby. And you can see there weren't actually that many other people even there involved. A couple people helped me, but like some of our strongest people were not around then, so I was a little more cautious with how many troops I had in my stage, just in case if they came with like 300 people attacking, like little, it's like 30, 40 people attacking, I would have just left those other forces out, because I didn't want to risk, without having some of our strongest players there, risk losing a ton of points, extra points, by bringing everybody back and fighting a losing battle. So that's the reason I did it this way, because this is when we didn't have Samoon or Surveyor, our strongest people, on and available. I had like half my fleetish, a large amount of it out, so that if things got ugly before I could bubble and stuff, then I wouldn't recall my troops and I wouldn't cost us a ton of points, because they came 30 plus deep and just wrecked us, and I would have just let them kill, half my fleet then, and I still should have basically lost almost no troops because of my hospital capacity and how that would work with half my troops there, and then it would also minimize the points that we would lose. But luckily that didn't happen, so that was kind of the strategy idea behind there. And so I just turned it into the recall all because they didn't come with that much force, and I was able to, with the help of some other people, get about a 3x points beneficial differential from them on that one. So holy crap, was that a long video already? I feel like I walked through a lot of different strategy stuff. I will talk about in another video, I think. Just I'll go over the concept of purging and how important that is, and I'll go over all the footage from the actual frenzy event separate from this, because that is important. The very last thing I'm going to leave you with here, because I didn't cover it yet, I just want to show you guys this. So this stupid trap that I think I mentioned, as far as like, if you look at the cost of this, it is a huge rip-off. Do not fall for this, okay? There are lots of things that if you want to spend your money on that can be very helpful in the game, do not fall for this, right? So if you look here, like by the end of the event, this is after the event's over, this is like 40 minutes until I can't recover the troops, right? They like leave it up for a full week or whatever after just like showing up in the corner nonstop, like taunting people, I feel like, to try to get them to fall into this stupid trap. So, okay, I need 1.3 million void potion or whatever it is to actually recover these troops. This is only 93K too, right? Like, this is not even that many. This is 93K. It's gonna cost 5 days of heals, so 5 days of heals to do this for less than 100K. I also have to pay $130, right? So like the amount of potions I would need, 1.3 million, I have to spend $130 to heal less than 100K. And not only that, I also have to pay or use my speed ups or gold on top of that. So you're basically paying double, okay? So instead of just using that money or gold, if you will, to train more troops, recruit more troops in the next recruiting event and actually score more points and just replace those troops anyways, doing it this way, you have to pay for heals and you have to pay for a bunch of this void potion stuff. And so they're just trying to play on like people losing troops and being like attached to this idea of their troops and having this chance to get some of them back. Like, troops are very expendable and very much something you can train again or get back. These are not the things you should be spending your money on if you're going to spend money in this game. Spending it on like long-term, permanent stats and things that will help boost your officers, for instance, is infinitely better to use your money on than burning it on something stupid like this. So I just wanted to leave with that on a positive note of how fun these events can be, but don't fall for the stupid things and waste your money like $130 for less than 100K heals when you could, if you spent anywhere near that much money on getting more recruitment speed ups, you would be able to train so many troops in your next event. It would be way more beneficial to do it that way. So that's the last piece of advice I'm going to leave you with is do not fall for this void hospital nonsense. Do not spend your money on that. And then in the next video that I'll have to come out with after this, I'm going to go over the last couple of tips and tricks and go over our most recent Frenzy event, which was quite different from this one in a lot of ways, and it'll be a good stark contrast. So thank you if you stuck with and watched this whole event. I'm sorry it was so long, but hopefully there was a lot of really useful information and you guys got something out of it. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe if you haven't. Please feel free to comment. It's much appreciated. And again, I'm gonna hit you guys up with another video here soon for the rest of the kill event stuff, and we'll go from there. So thanks again, guys, and I appreciate it. Have a good one. Stay safe out there.